Chapter 305. On the beach of Iron Leaf Island, Ting Qingshan and Li Jun didn't know what to do. The black gale divine condor spiraled proudly in the dark sky, occasionally emitting cries. Although it couldn't kill Ting Qingshan with force, it was able to make Ting Qingshan suffer a setback. This made the black gale divine condor extremely happy. "Big brother Ting, let me try again." Li Jun didn't want to give up. She raised her head and emitted loud and clear cries. Seeing Li Jun's stubborn look, Ting Qingshan suddenly smiled. Screech, the black gale divine condor emitted a resounding and proud cry and continued to spiral in the sky. Ting Qingshan raised his head and glanced at the divine condor. He understood that the divine condor was doing this on purpose. "Little Jun," Ting Qingshan opened his mouth and said. Li Jun looked at Ting Qingshan. "Forget it. Since we can't tame it, there's no need to force it." Ting Qingshan glanced at the divine condor and said, "This black gale divine condor is obviously angering us on purpose. I guess it holds a grudge against me for stabbing it with my spear just now. Moreover, it's very difficult to tame a Golden Dan innate demonic beast. There's no need to force it." Previously, Ting Qingshan only had the thought of subduing it. It would be a wonderful thing if he could tame it, but if he couldn't, there was no need to force it. Demonic beasts had their own pride. How could they easily lower their heads and submit? Li Jun nodded. Martial Uncle said that it took a lot of effort to tame White, Black, and the red-eyed snow lion. "Come, let's board the boat." Ting Qingshan lifted the fishing net and carried it on his shoulder. With the reincarnation spear in his hand, he walked towards the sea. Li Jun hastily followed. Screech, screech, the black gale divine condor circling in the sky immediately emitted screeches. "Big brother Ting, the divine condor wants us to talk to it." Li Jun smiled. "Ignore it." Ting Qingshan didn't even turn his head back. Li Jun also nodded. "I know, it did it on purpose. You want to make fun of us." Walking in the sea, Ting Qingshan dived into the sea. The seawater around Li Jun moved away, allowing her to breathe easily. Hearing the thunder whales growl, Li Jun easily climbed onto its back. Although Ting Qingshan was carrying an object that weighed thousands of pounds, his legs were very strong. With a single slap, he could swim a long distance. Whoosh! Ting Qingshan jumped onto the back of the same thunder whale. At the side, the king of thunder whales looked at Ting Qingshan with its huge golden eyes and let out a low roar. High up in the sky, the black gale divine condor let out a series of cries, attracting the attention of Ting Qingshan and Li Wuyo. "Big brother Ting," Li Jun said with a face full of smiles, "that black gale divine condor is laughing at us. The king of thunder whales told us to give them the 7 components of the iron leaf fruit first. Don't worry, we'll be on the boat in a while," Ting Qingshan said with a smile. Looking at the human standing on the back of one of its subordinate thunder whales, the king of thunder whales chose to remain silent. It knew that the human was an expert of the same level as itself. In the bushes by the seaside of Iron Leaf Island, demonic beasts popped their heads out and watched the human standing on the back of the thunder whale leave. Even in midair, there were many flying demonic beasts. These ordinary demonic beasts firmly remembered the appearance of the human expert who came to Iron Leaf Island, plucked all the iron leaf fruits, and severely injured the master of Iron Leaf Island, the black gale divine condor. Among the reef. Phew! Phew! Ting Qingshan held Li Jun's hand and leaped over Tenjiang, directly landing on the deck of the tungsten wood vessel. Roar! Below, the king of thunder whales raised its head and let out a low roar towards Ting Qingshan. "Big brother Ting, it wants us to give it the iron leaf fruits," Li Jun explained. "How? Throw it into the sea?" Ting Qingshan asked. "The iron leaf fruits are very heavy. They will sink directly." Li Jun and the king of thunder whales conversed, then nodded and said, "Big brother Ting, it wants us to throw the iron leaf fruits into the sea. They will take the iron leaf fruits away." "All right. Ting Qingshan opened the fishing net and casually tossed 30 to 40% of the iron leaf fruits onto the tungsten wood vessel. Clang! 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 One by one, the iron leaf fruits smashed onto the deck like jadeite balls. This deck was also built with tungsten wood, which was harder and more durable than steel. The collision of the two produced a clear and loud sound that echoed across the sea. King of Thunder Whales, these are yours. Ting Qingshan picked up the big fishing net, which contained a large amount of iron leaf fruit. Immediately, the 30 or so thunder whales in the sea all raised their heads. The King of Thunder Whales' pair of huge golden eyes were filled with surprise as it stared at the large amount of iron leaf fruit. Catch! Ting Qingshan laughed and shook the fishing net fiercely. Hundreds of green fruits soared into the sky, flying 7 to 8 zhang high. Hua! As if it was raining fruits, hundreds of fruits fell into the sea one by one. Pa, pa, pa. One by one, they smashed onto the surface of the water, splashing snow-white waves. Phew! The King of Thunder Whales opened its mouth and took a deep breath. Whoosh! It was as if a tornado had appeared out of nowhere. The strong airflow swept the surrounding seawater into the King of Thunder Whales' mouth. A large amount of seawater, including the iron leaf fruits that had just fallen into the sea, rushed into its mouth. At the same time, a dozen or so thunder whales flipped their tails and buried themselves in the depths of the sea to prevent the iron leaf fruits from escaping. The boat is swaying, we are swimming towards its mouth. Li Jun was shocked. Due to the strong flow of water, the tungsten wood vessel became unstable and was swimming towards the King of Thunder Whales' mouth. This King of Thunder Whales is messing with me. Ting Qingshan stood on the deck, not panicking in the slightest. The tungsten wood vessel flowed along the current for about 7 to 8 zhang. Suddenly, with a clang sound, the tungsten wood vessel stopped flowing. It stopped about 10 zhang away from the King of Thunder Whales' mouth. This was because the iron chain of the tungsten wood vessel was tied to the dorsal fin of a thunder whale. The thunder whale had been pulling the tungsten wood vessel, so how could the tungsten wood vessel fall into the King of Thunder Whales' mouth? At this moment the iron chain, which was as thick as an arm, was stretched taut, forcefully pulling the tungsten wood vessel. After a moment, the King of Thunder Whales stopped swallowing, and the surrounding seawater regained its tranquility. The tungsten wood vessel also slowly drifted along the direction of the current. Roar! The King of Thunder Whales let out an excited roar, and the surrounding 30 or so thunder whales also let out excited roars. Each and every one of them looked at Ting Qingshan, who was standing on the bow of the tungsten wood vessel. Big Brother Ting, the King of Thunder Whales is very grateful to you. Li Jun smiled and said, "It's said that this is the first time in thousands of years that they were able to obtain so many iron leaf fruits at once." Ting Qingshan also looked at the King of Thunder Whales in the sea and smiled. It seems that this iron leaf fruit is indeed very important to the thunder whale community. Phew! Ting Qingshan jumped off the tungsten wood vessel, went to the thunder whale's back, and untied the iron chain from its dorsal fin. The King of Thunder Whales and Ting Qingshan glanced at each other, and its huge head nodded towards Ting Qingshan. Soon after, it let out a loud roar, and the 30 or so thunder whales swung their tail fins in unison, creating huge white waves. They all dived into the sea and quickly left. Pa pa! After stepping on the water twice, Ting Qingshan held the iron chain and leaped onto the deck. Let's go! Ting Qingshan and Li Jun glanced at each other and smiled. Ting Qingshan then rowed the huge oar and steered the tungsten wood vessel away from the reef area. Voila! After Ting Qingshan steered the tungsten wood vessel away from the reef area, he raised the sails. Suddenly, a black shadow shot over from afar. Ting Qingshan frowned as he looked over. Li Jun also quickly discovered the black shadow. Screech! A loud and clear bird cry came from the air in front of Ting Qingshan. Ting Qingshan looked carefully. The black shadow was a gray eagle with a body that was about 1 zhang long. It was one size smaller than the black Gale divine eagle. The feathers on the lower part of the gray eagle's body and tail were white, and the feathers on its neck were white as well. Its eyes and eyebrows were covered with golden feathers. From the looks of it, it was a majestic eagle. Demonic beast, whole Gale eagle. Ting Qingshan judged from its appearance. The whole Gale eagle is only a normal eagle-type demonic beast. Even if it is an expert among the whole Gale eagles, it is only at the level of the Hollow Dan innate realm. It can spit out wind blades. Ting Qingshan's horizons had broadened. Demonic beasts at the level of the Hollow Dan innate realm posed no threat to him. Screech, screech, the eagle cried unceasingly. Little June, what is it saying? Ting Qingshan looked at Li Jun, who was beside him, with a puzzled expression. As Li Jun listened, her face was filled with astonishment. Little June! Ting Qingshan shouted again. Li Jun woke up with a start. She blinked her eyes and looked at Ting Qingshan. Big brother Ting, I heard what it said just now, but I don't believe it. What did it say? Ting Qingshan asked, puzzled. It said. Li Jun looked at Ting Qingshan. It hopes that we can give it some iron leaf fruits to eat. Why should we give it? Ting Qingshan asked with interest. Li Jun had a strange expression on her face. This whole Gale eagle said that if we give it one iron leaf fruit, it will follow us for a month and listen to us. Ting Qingshan raised his head and looked at the whole Gale eagle. He was very surprised. Demonic beasts were usually arrogant, but this whole Gale eagle was rather interesting. Ask it why it did that. Ting Qingshan was puzzled. He didn't dare to believe it so easily. Otherwise, if the whole Gale eagle ate a whole bunch of iron leaf fruits and then flapped its wings and ran away, Ting Qingshan and the others could only watch helplessly. After all, they couldn't fly. Screech, screech, Li Jun and the whole Gale eagle in the sky communicated with each other. Their cries were very pleasant to the ear. Ting Qingshan looked at this scene and said, the speed of the whole Gale eagle is extremely fast. If it comes with us, indeed, I could carry little June in midair. I didn't need him to fight. Its use here was similar to that of the black Gale divine condor. It would be a good thing if we could leave together. Moments later, Big brother Ting. Li Jun looked at Ting Qingshan and said with a smile, this iron leaf fruit is useless to Golden Dan innate demonic beasts. However, it is very useful to weak demonic beasts. It is also somewhat useful to Hollow Dan innate demonic beasts. On the Iron Leaf Island, the Black Gale divine condor monopolizes the iron leaf fruit. Many demonic beasts listen to the Black Gale divine condor. The Black Gale divine condor will occasionally give them one or two fruit. However, this whole Gale eagle isn't very sociable. It even fought with one or two flying demonic beasts. It hasn't been able to get a single fruit for a few years, so it's boring on this island. Therefore, it wants to leave with us so that it can share the fruit. When Ting Qingshan heard this, he couldn't help but laugh. Little June, it seems that this whole Gale eagle doesn't have a good relationship with the other demonic beasts. Chapter 306. Ting Qingshan looked at the whole Gale eagle in the sky. The eyes of the whole Gale eagle also looked at Ting Qingshan with a trace of desire. As expected of a human with intelligence, it even learned to use its eyes. Ting Qingshan was in a very good mood. With a whole Gale eagle accompanying them, it would indeed save them a lot of trouble. Big brother Ting, do we agree? Li Jun asked. Her heart was itching, but she still needed Ting Qingshan's permission. Ting Qingshan raised his head and glanced at Li Jun before saying, You tell it that I told you to. The iron leaf fruits are all in the cabin. As for the whole Gale eagle, it can only rest on the deck and is not allowed to enter the cabin. Give it one fruit every month. Li Jun was overjoyed and immediately emitted a series of cries towards the whole Gale eagle. Ting Qingshan, on the other hand, placed all the scattered iron leaf fruits on the deck into the fishing net. He then rolled the fishing net through the cabin door and lightly tossed it with his hand infused with the internal supreme force. The fishing net, which contained Ting Qingshan's strength, passed through the cabin door and spun as it fell into the cabin. Hua! Ting Qingshan closed the cabin door. A gust of strong wind blew and the whole gale eagle descended from the sky and landed on the deck of the tungsten wood vessel, standing upright. Even if it didn't spread its wings, the whole gale eagle was almost as tall as Ting Qingshan. Screech! The whole gale eagle emitted a screech towards Ting Qingshan. It clearly remembered that this human in front of it had killed the annoying blood shadow wolf with one move, which was as strong as itself. He had also severely injured the powerful black gale divine condor. No matter what, it had to be careful of the human in front of it. Otherwise, it would be killed with a single slap. Big brother Ting, it's expressing its goodwill to you. Li Jun smiled. Yes. Ting Qingshan glanced at it and smiled. This guy is a little interesting. You chat with it and tell it not to disturb me if there's nothing important. I don't understand its bird language. Li Jun covered her mouth and smiled. Yes, I understand. Ting Qingshan did not get intimate with the whole gale eagle. Instead, he went to the other end of the deck and began to practice his fist technique. Who? At the side, Li Jun and the whole gale eagle were happily chatting. The whole gale eagle was also complaining about his life on Iron Leaf Island. Occasionally, it would sneak a peek at Ting Qingshan. It realized that this powerful human was just like the strong demon beasts, very arrogant. The whole gale eagle made up its mind to not provoke that powerful human in the future. It looked at Li Jun beside it. This girl was the best. She could even chat with it. Big brother Ting, what should we call it in the future? Li Jun suddenly shouted. Ting Qingshan, who was practicing boxing, did not stop and said directly, Aren't those two fierce wind divine eagles called Blackie and White? This whole gale eagle is only an innate emptiness Dan, much weaker than the fierce wind divine eagle. Its body is also much smaller, and its feathers are gray in color. Let's call it Little Gray. Li Jun stuck out her tongue. Little Gray. Li Jun told the whole gale eagle. Although the whole gale eagle was very dissatisfied with the name Little Gray, when it heard Li Jun say that it was the name Ting Qingshan gave it, it immediately agreed to this name. Little Gray! Screech! The whole gale eagle cried. Little Gray! Little Gray! Li Jun shouted twice. Screech! Screech! The whole gale eagle cried twice. Ting Qingshan, who was practicing boxing, glanced over and a smile appeared on his face. This whole gale eagle was quite interesting. With an additional whole gale eagle, the journey in the North Sea would be more interesting. On the tungsten wood vessel, Ting Qingshan was practicing boxing. Li Jun and the whole gale eagle were conversing through bird cries. Everything seemed very natural. Phew! Phew! The sea breeze blew and the sails fluttered. The tungsten wood vessel drifted further and further in the vast North Sea under the boundless night sky, disappearing into the depths of the North Sea. Time passed. The days of drifting on the sea were very peaceful. In the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed since they left Iron Leaf Island. On the sea, Ting Qingshan wholeheartedly immersed himself in cultivation. The relationship between Li Jun and the whole gale eagle became even closer. Li Jun was indeed an expert in taming demonic beasts. In the beginning, the whole gale eagle only felt that Ting Qingshan wasn't easy to get close to, so it often interacted with Li Jun. But as time passed, the whole gale eagle realized that following by Li Jun's side was indeed a wonderful thing. In the North Sea, the tungsten wood vessel stopped motionlessly on the surface of the sea. An iron anchor was already deeply stuck in a rock in the sea. Chi-Chi, a brazier was placed on the deck of the tungsten wood vessel. Wood was burning in the brazier, and there was an iron plate on top of it. The iron plate was burning red, and there were fishes on the iron plate. Li Jun was sitting at the side, barbecuing them. Occasionally, she would pour some seasonings onto the plate. The seasonings for barbecuing were all brought from the ship. They brought a lot of seasonings, enough for 2 people to use for a few years. Little Gray, don't be anxious. Li Jun smiled as she glanced at the whole Gale Eagle. The whole Gale Eagle stared at the barbecued fish and salivated. In the past, it had always eaten raw fish, but it didn't expect that the barbecued fish would taste so delicious and the flesh so tender. After eating it once, the whole Gale Eagle was hooked. Li Jun also discovered that the whole Gale Eagle was a gluttonous fellow. Last month, the tungsten-wood vessel had accidentally encountered a deserted island. With Ting Qingshan's wilderness experience, which he had trained in the mountains since he was young, he easily found some delicious wild fruits and some wild vegetables. Most of the wild fruits were eaten by the whole Gale Eagle. Gluttonous. This was the whole Gale Eagle. In the past, it relied on Ting Qingshan to catch fish. Now, the whole Gale Eagle would take the initiative to catch fish. With its ability, although it wasn't as good at catching fish as Ting Qingshan, it could still catch tens to hundreds of fish in one go. Big Brother Ting, it's time to come up. Li Jun looked at the sea through the railings of the ship. Screech, screech, the whole Gale Eagle became anxious and cried out a few times, meaning, "Captain isn't coming, let's eat first. If we don't eat, the fish will be burnt." Li Jun glanced at it with a smile. "Haha, alright, you eat first." As she spoke, she picked up 2 fish and placed them in the iron basin in front of the whole Gale Eagle. The whole Gale Eagle excitedly lowered its head and picked up one of the fish with its beak. With a bit of strength, it tore off half of the fish and swallowed it. Soon after, it swallowed the other half. It didn't even care about the fish card as it ate excitedly. The whole Gale Eagle felt that its previous decision was very wise. How could it eat such delicious barbecued fish on the Iron Leaf Island? When it was happy, it even proudly cried towards the sky. Bang! Waves suddenly splashed. A figure holding an iron anchor flew up and landed on the deck. It was Ting Qingshan. There were still water droplets on Ting Qingshan's hair. Ting Qingshan put the iron anchor and chain to the side, looked over and said with a smile, "Little Gray eats quite fast. If you didn't come back and I didn't give it anything to eat, I reckon it would be so anxious that it would go into the water to look for you." Li Jun said with a smile. The whole Gale Eagle, who was beside her, held a fish in its beak when it saw Ting Qingshan coming up to the deck. It spread its wings and proudly flapped twice. Ting Qingshan smiled. "You just ate before me. Look at how proud you are." After 3 months of getting along, the relationship between Ting Qingshan and the whole Gale Eagle was pretty good. Ting Qingshan also discovered that, although demonic beasts were savage in nature, they were still very pure in nature. It would kill its enemies. If it recognized you as a friend, it would be very friendly. They would respect the strong and be tyrannical to the weak. Although they had the intelligence of humans, the environment they lived in was not as complicated as humans. Due to their pure nature, demonic beasts did not have many needs. For example, the whole Gale Eagle was a glutton. Little Jun's cooking skills are getting better and better. After sniffing, Ting Qingshan said with a smile, "Practice makes perfect." Li Jun and Ting Qingshan had been together for a long time, so their interaction was very natural. She no longer blushed at the slightest thing. Ting Qingshan put away the iron anchor, raised the sails, and adjusted the direction of the sails. Then, he walked over and ate the roasted fish together. Bathing in the sunlight and drifting on the sea, a man, a woman, and a demonic beast ate the roasted fish together. In the afternoon, Ting Qingshan held the reincarnation spear in his hand and practiced on the deck. Li Jun lay contentedly on the chair and basked in the sun. The whole Gale Eagle hovered in the air, venting its excitement after eating the roasted fish. Phew! Phew! Ting Qingshan's reincarnation spear was continuously practicing the same move, Toxic Dragon Drill. However, Ting Qingshan's demonstration of the Toxic Dragon Drill was no longer the same as before. Every time he performed the move, there would be a moment of weakness when he lost control. Now, every time Ting Qingshan performed the Toxic Dragon Drill, he could easily switch it to the Transmutation Unity Law Spear Art. Transmutation Unity Law to Toxic Dragon Drill, Toxic Dragon Drill to Transmutation Unity Law. There was no weakness. This was the result of Ting Qingshan's bitter training for more than 3 months. Since he left the sea until now, it had been more than 3 months. Ting Qingshan finally created the first move of the water element fist. The Toxic Dragon Drill also had a hint of gentleness. The Toxic Dragon Drill is now flawless. I can use it without worry when facing an enemy. Ting Qingshan was in a good mood. Suddenly, screech, a sharp cry came from the sky. Li Jun, who was sleeping on the chair, immediately opened her eyes and looked at the sky. Ting Qingshan also raised his head and looked at the sky. After being in contact with the whole Gale Eagle for a long time, Ting Qingshan could tell from the cry whether the whole Gale Eagle was excited, angry, or warning of an enemy. At this moment, the cry was obviously an urgent warning. In midair, a fiery phantom shot over from afar. The whole Gale Eagle immediately scuttled down to the deck. What is that? Li Jun looked at the sky in surprise. Ting Qingshan also looked carefully. The fiery phantom stopped, and only then did Ting Qingshan and Li Jun see the appearance of the target clearly. Its body feathers were azure in color. From its neck up, the feathers were 7-colored, and its crown was golden. Its tail feathers were very long and also 7-colored. When it spread its tail, it looked a bit like a peacock spreading its tail. However, the bird in front of them was even more beautiful and moving. The naturally formed golden crown was like an emperor's crown. Blue Luan, the divine bird Blue Luan. Ting Qingshan gasped. It's really the Blue Luan. The legend is actually true. Li Jun also widened her eyes in shock. The beautiful and dreamlike azure Luan stopped in midair. Flames could be faintly seen on its azure feathers. Under the illumination of the sunlight, its rainbow-colored tail feathers looked even more dreamlike. A pair of beautiful and moving eyes looked down at the tungsten wood vessel. The Blue Luan was extremely famous. According to the legend, as long as the Blue Luan reached adulthood, it would naturally reach the Golden Dan innate realm. Moreover, it would be the absolute king of this level. Its speed was extremely terrifying, and its attacks were extremely fierce. No matter how severe the injuries it suffered, the Blue Luan could recover rapidly. If a human had not stepped into the emptiness realm, they would definitely not be a match for the divine bird Blue Luan. Chapter 307. Ting Qingshan raised his head and looked at the divine bird Blue Luan in the sky. But in his heart, he was puzzled. What was this Blue Luan doing above his ship? His men didn't seem to have provoked the divine bird Blue Luan. High up in the sky, the green Luan's beautiful eyes were staring at Ting Qingshan. Little Jun, ask it why it came here, Ting Qingshan said. Li Jun immediately raised her head and let out a series of cries. The green Luan looked at the human girl below in surprise. Screech, the Blue Luan emitted a pleasant cry. Li Jun turned to look at Ting Qingshan in disbelief. Ting Qingshan asked, what did it say? Li Jun hastily said, Big Brother Ting, the Blue Luan just said that it saw Big Brother Ting practicing his spear art from afar. Let it feel the aura of heaven and earth. It wants to spar with you. Ting Qingshan laughed in surprise. It wants to compete with me? Interesting, interesting. Ting Qingshan smiled as he looked at the green Luan in midair. Screech, screech, the Blue Luan let out several screeches. Li Jun also said, Big Brother Ting, the Blue Luan said that it won't hurt you. It just wants to compete with you and hopes that you can use the spear art just now. Ting Qingshan laughed, Little Jun, it seems like this Blue Luan is the same as us humans. We also want to comprehend the heavenly Tao. When the Blue Luan reached adulthood, it would reach the Golden Dan innate realm. It wanted to break through again and reach the emptiness realm. Indeed, one needed to comprehend heaven and earth. The toxic dragon drill that I was practicing just now contained the concept of the water element fist. Maybe it sensed it. This azure Luan's eyes are quite sharp. Comprehend the heavenly Tao? Li Jun was also slightly surprised. Tell it that I'm willing to compete with it. Ting Qingshan smiled. According to the legends, this blue Luan is a divine bird. If a human had not reached the emptiness realm, he would definitely not be a match for the blue Luan. I don't believe it. Li Jun immediately raised her head and told the blue Luan that Ting Qingshan was willing to compete with her. Screech, the blue Luan immediately let out an excited cry. Immediately, a fiery red phantom streaked across the sky and dove straight towards Ting Qingshan. Ting Qingshan didn't dare to be careless. He held his reincarnation spear and stood at the side of the boat, on high alert. Hoo! A stream of hot air filled the air. Ting Qingshan could only see two blurry claw shadows. So fast! Ting Qingshan immediately executed the transmutation unity law spear art. The spearhead danced like a phantom, and with a clang sound, Ting Qingshan was forced to retreat a few steps. Every step he took caused the tungsten wood vessel to shake violently. Fortunately, Ting Qingshan controlled himself. Otherwise, he would have cracked the deck of the tungsten wood vessel. The blue Luan also retreated. Screech, the blue Luan was very excited. Let's go down and fight. Ting Qingshan shouted loudly and jumped down from the tungsten wood vessel barefooted. If they were to fight on the tungsten wood vessel, Ting Qingshan was afraid that his tungsten wood vessel would be destroyed after the battle. And Ting Qingshan's worry was not groundless. Just a single clash had caused the vibrating shockwave to leave scratches on the mast. Moreover, the mast was made of the hardest and thickest tungsten wood in the entire vessel. Big brother Ting! Li Jun hastily rushed to the bow of the vessel and looked down. The whole Gale Eagle was also watching from the side. It seemed to have realized Li Jun's worry, and even used its head to gently nudge Li Jun to comfort her. Yes. Li Jun looked down nervously. She saw Ting Qingshan standing on the surface of the sea with only his ankles submerged in the water. The waves under his feet were constantly rolling, as if there was a powerful force acting on the waves. Actually, ordinary people who were good at swimming could tread on water. With Ting Qingshan's current unimaginable physical strength, he could easily produce a force of over 1,000 jin by treading on water with his feet submerged in the water. It was simply too easy to withstand the force of one person. Clang! 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 Ting Qingshan was fighting with the blue Luan on the surface of the sea about 10 zhang away from the tungsten wood vessel. The reincarnation spear in Ting Qingshan's hands seemed to have transformed into a silver dragon. The spearhead even transformed into dense phantoms. No matter how fast the blue Luan was or how fierce its attacks were, it was simply unable to break through Ting Qingshan's set of defensive spear arts. After cultivating the earth element fist to the second stage and using the reincarnation spear, it was truly impenetrable. Ting Qingshan's defense was truly terrifying. The blue Luan is indeed a divine bird. Ting Qingshan's eyes were as sharp as knives. The minute movements within a zhang's radius are too terrifying. The blue Luan's sharp claws were able to move horizontally by 1 qi in an instant. This kind of minute movements often caught people off guard. At first glance, the blue Luan's claws were aimed at his neck, but in the blink of an eye, it was attacking his chest. The shadow of the claws seemed to be divided into two. Ting Qingshan had never encountered this kind of strange and frightening subtle and sudden change. Terrifying. No wonder the legends say that if a human had not reached the emptiness realm, he would definitely not be a match for the blue Luan. Ting Qingshan was very clear. Ting Qingshan's earth element fist had reached the second stage and was already deep into the Tao. If it was another Golden Dan innate expert, he would definitely not be able to block this series of attacks. Screech, the blue Luan seemed to be excited from the killing and screeched loudly. Phew! Phew! Through the slight vibrations of its wings and the control of the flames on its body, the blue luan could continuously move horizontally within a small area and change its attacking position. It even made Ting Qingshan's vision blur as 3 or 4 blue luan phantoms appeared in front of him. Ting Qingshan could not rely on his eyes to lock onto his opponent. Clang! Clang! Ting Qingshan's series of defenses were perfect and flawless. When the transmutation unity law was executed, Ting Qingshan could feel a shapeless force surrounding him. It could be called the earth elemental power of the heavens and earth. It was because of this earth elemental power that Ting Qingshan was able to block the blue luan's attacks with ease. It was impossible for the blue luan to continuously attack crazily. She also needed to adjust. Toxic Dragon Drill. Ting Qingshan aimed and changed his spear art, executing the Toxic Dragon Drill. Buzz! The space seemed to have been drilled and exploded, and a silver lightning flashed. Phew! The blue luan, who was caught off guard, flapped its wings slightly and instantly moved 2 qi horizontally. The tip of Ting Qingshan's reincarnation spear brushed past the blue luan's wings. Screech! The blue luan immediately took the opportunity to claw. Ting Qingshan immediately changed his spear art to the transmutation unity law spear art. It was flawless. Clang! It forcefully blocked the blue luan's fierce claw. A man and a demonic beast fought on the surface of the sea for a long time before they finally separated. Screech! The blue luan looked at Ting Qingshan and nodded its head. After fighting for such a long time, it also admired this human's spear art. You are also very powerful. Ting Qingshan smiled. The blue luan deserved to be called a divine bird. Its subtle movements could be said to be instantaneous movement, which was simply inconceivable. Following a piercing cry, the blue luan, whose entire body was enveloped in flames, flapped its wings and transformed into a fiery red phantom, disappearing into the northern horizon. Whoosh! Ting Qingshan also continuously treaded on the water and leaped over 10 zhang before landing on the deck of the tungsten wood vessel. Big Brother Ting, the blue luan said that you are very powerful and that your spear art is very amazing. Li Jun hastily said. Ting Qingshan glanced at the northern horizon and said, this blue luan is also very powerful. From the beginning to the end, it only relied on its lightning-fast movements in this small area and its sharp claws to attack me. This blue luan's flames are also very powerful. It didn't use its flames to attack me. Yes. Li Jun also looked at the northern horizon and said, the divine bird blue luan was indeed only competing with each other, moving in this small area. Ting Qingshan exclaimed in admiration, this is a very terrifying qing gong. If anyone could master this qing gong, to be able to move in an instant and reach the level of the blue luan, that would be very powerful. Ting Qingshan had never seen anyone with this kind of qing gong. Even other demonic beasts had done it before. Perhaps, only the blue luan with its innate talent could do it. If my spear art, Toxic Dragon Drill, could be faster, the blue luan wouldn't be able to dodge it. Ting Qingshan thought to himself. When competing with the divine bird blue luan, Ting Qingshan also felt that he was not strong enough. He had only comprehended the first move of the water element fist, while he had comprehended 2 large sections of the earth element fist, a total of 6 moves. The difference was huge. After this battle, Ting Qingshan concentrated on training even more seriously. He worked hard to increase the speed of the Toxic Dragon Drill. He would rather reduce the attack power, but the speed had to be fast enough. After all, with Ting Qingshan's current physical strength, even if the attack power of the Toxic Dragon Drill was reduced by 20%, ordinary Golden Dan innate demonic beasts and humans wouldn't be able to withstand it. He would rather reduce the attack power, but the speed had to be fast. It was easy to think, but difficult to do. Ting Qingshan immersed himself in training. On the 6th night after the battle with the blue luan, it was very quiet in the tungsten wood cabin. Voila, the sound of the sea could be faintly heard from outside the cabin. Ting Qingshan sat cross-legged on the cotton blanket and meditated. Voila! Boom! The sound of the waves outside was very noisy. However, there were many situations on the sea, so Ting Qingshan usually didn't care. But today, Ting Qingshan opened his eyes. Something's wrong. Ting Qingshan frowned and said, the tungsten wood vessel's speed was extremely fast, then it slowed down. After that, it sped up and slowed down again. This process has been repeated 3 times. It's very regular. Ting Qingshan felt that something was wrong. It wasn't strange for the tungsten wood vessel to speed up while drifting on the sea. However, it was strange for the tungsten wood vessel to speed up and decelerate in a regular manner. Ting Qingshan stood up and opened the cabin door. Voila! Big brother Ting, is something wrong outside? Li Jun's voice came from behind the curtain. There shouldn't be anything wrong. I'll go out and take a look, Ting Qingshan said and closed the cabin door. On the deck of the tungsten wood vessel, the whole Gale Eagle was curled up and sleeping next to the mast. When Ting Qingshan came up, it stood up. Screech, the whole Gale Eagle immediately came over. Don't mess around. Ting Qingshan smiled and glanced at the whole Gale Eagle. He then stood at the bow of the vessel and carefully looked at the sea. With Ting Qingshan's eyesight, even if it was night time, he could still see very clearly. The seawater on the entire surface of the sea was very turbulent. The speed is increasing, Ting Qingshan observed while feeling the speed of the tungsten wood vessel. After a long time, suddenly, Ting Qingshan could clearly see that the speed of the water's flow began to slow down. This is the 4th time, Ting Qingshan observed with a frown. Each time, the speed alternated between fast and slow, and the distance was about 10 li. Although Ting Qingshan felt that it was strange, he was a bold and skilled person. He wasn't afraid of any strange areas in the sea. Even if it was dangerous, he could just ride the whole Gale Eagle to the sky. Therefore, he carefully observed this strange area of sea with peace of mind. Although the speed of the seawater alternated between fast and slow, even if it was slow, it was only relative. When Ting Qingshan counted to the 7th time. What's that? Ting Qingshan stared at the far north, at the seemingly boundless coastline that spread out. Ting Qingshan stared blankly. I've only been at sea for 3 months. I reckon that I haven't reached the northern sea continent yet. P.S. 3 chapters completed. Tomato updated 21 chapters in 7 days from the 5th to the 11th, ending the outburst. Of course, Tomato didn't forget the 3 chapters he owed everyone. He should return them in a few days. Chapter 308. The tungsten wood vessel floated rapidly along the turbulent sea. Li Jun quickly came out from the bow of the vessel, and stood side by side with Ting Qingshan as they gazed at the northernmost coastline. The 8th time. Ting Qingshan still remembered the alternating speed of the water and the speed of the seawater. Big brother Ting, you said that there is a huge island in front? Li Jun said in surprise. She carefully looked to the north, but she could only see a stretch of darkness, and only the whistling of the sea breeze could be heard. Ting Qingshan nodded. You'll see it later. Unlike him, Li Jun didn't possess the power of the night. After a long time, the 9th time, Ting Qingshan found that the speed of the ship had decreased again. Even though it was slow, it was still faster than the usual speed on the sea. At this moment, the so-called speed was even more shocking. Pung! Suddenly, there was a violent collision. The entire tungsten wood vessel suddenly jolted. Ting Qingshan frowned. Not good, there are submerged reefs below. Hidden reef. Li Jun's expression also changed slightly. If it was a reef protruding out of the water, he could have seen it long ago and avoided it. However, some of the reefs were below the surface of the water. The depth of the tungsten wood vessel's draft was just enough to touch these reefs. This made it impossible for anyone to avoid it. He could only rely on luck. Pung! Another collision. The tungsten wood vessel swayed again. Li Jun hastily grabbed the bow of the vessel, fearing that she would fall into the sea. It should be fine. Ting Qingshan comforted him. This tungsten wood vessel is made of tungsten wood, which is harder than steel and has better tenacity. Furthermore, the bottom was thickened to withstand the impact. We ran into many submerged reefs along the way, but we were fine. They had to make it through this reef area. Everything would be fine. Pung, pung, pung. Again and again, the tungsten wood vessel shook. The ship's speed was so fast, and the collision was so violent. Even a ship made of real steel would have a big hole in it. Fortunately, it was made of tungsten wood, which was much more tenacious and could withstand the impact. Moments later, "Big Brother Ting, I see it, I see it. Could it be that we have arrived at the northern sea continent?" With the help of the blurry moonlight, Li Jun finally managed to see the long coastline. Especially when she looked closer, she couldn't see the end of it. Right now, we are only a few li away from the island. Ting Qingshan looked at the turbulent sea. The tungsten wood vessel violently shook again and crashed into a submerged reef. Ting Qingshan, on the other hand, was calculating in his mind, alternating between fast and slow speeds. Each time the distance is tens of miles. This is the 9th time. In other words, there are a total of 9 interlocking zones. 9 interlocking zones. Ting Qingshan carefully looked at the land several li ahead. The vegetation on the beach was very lush. The tungsten wood vessel stopped at the seaside. Ting Qingshan dropped the anchor and stopped steadily. "Little June, let's go down and take a look," Ting Qingshan said. As usual, Li Jun and Ting Qingshan got off the boat together. Screech, the whole Gale Eagle also flew up and disembarked the boat. By the time Ting Qingshan and the others arrived at the seashore, the sky had already begun to brighten. On the beach, Ting Qingshan and Li Jun walked side by side on the beach. Suddenly, Ting Qingshan's expression changed. He turned his head to look at the lush vegetation and shouted, "Come out!" Swoosh, swoosh. A chaotic sound immediately came from the lush vegetation. Ting Qingshan's body moved like a strong gust of wind. In the blink of an eye, he had already rushed into the lush vegetation. Li Jun waited at the same spot. She trusted Ting Qingshan very much. "Soon, Big Brother Ting." Li Jun smiled and shouted. At this moment, Ting Qingshan grabbed a middle-aged man and walked back. "Hero, spare my life! Hero, spare my life!" the middle-aged man repeatedly said. "Hero?" Li Jun looked at the middle-aged man in surprise. In the land of the 9 prefectures, the term hero was rarely heard. Most importantly, although the middle-aged man's accent was a bit awkward, his language was obviously the language of the land of the 9 prefectures. "I will ask you one question, and you will answer one question. Be honest." Ting Qingshan was holding a sharp sword in his hand. This was the middle-aged man's weapon. The middle-aged man hastily said, "I am Shangguan Quan." "Shangguan, that's a rather rare surname," Li Jun muttered at the side. The middle-aged man called Shangguan Quan hastily explained, "Heroine, what you said is wrong. Shangguan is a big surname in our northern Yen town." "Northern Yen town?" Ting Qingshan's heart stirred. "How many people do you have in northern Yen town?" Ting Qingshan asked. Shangguan Quan was startled. He seemed to be puzzled by Ting Qingshan's question. Ting Qingshan's face darkened. "I will ask and you will answer. If you hesitate." Ting Qingshan exerted force, and the sharp sword in his hand was immediately twisted into a dough twist. Soon after, a crisp sound rang out, and a large amount of crushed iron powder fell from Ting Qingshan's palm. "Hardcore fan?" Shangguan Quan was stunned. It wasn't difficult to twist a sword into a dough twist. It wasn't difficult to break a few pieces. But to twist a sword into iron powder was simply inconceivable. Shangguan Quan was swept by Ting Qingshan's gaze and then looked at his hardcore fan. He felt a chill in his heart and hastily said, "I estimate that my northern Yen town has a few 100,000 people." How many towns are there on the island? Ting Qingshan asked again. Although Shangguan Quan was curious as to why Ting Qingshan would ask such an ordinary question, he didn't dare to hesitate. My Bright Moon Island has a total of 18 towns. Ting Qingshan and Li Jun looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with astonishment. Even on some of the islands in the coastal waters of the land of the 9 prefectures, it would be considered good if an island had a population of several tens of thousands. Those that had a population of several hundreds of thousands were all very large islands. They didn't expect that, in the depths of the North Sea, there was actually a large island with an estimated population of over 10 million. Why did you come to the seaside so early in the morning? Ting Qingshan asked. I am a fisherman, Shangguan Quan hastily said. I came here in the morning. Fishermen carry sharp swords? I saw that your swordsmanship just now wasn't bad. Ting Qingshan's complexion sank. When he went to grab Ting Qingshan's desperate sword strike was indeed very powerful. Shangguan Quan looked at Ting Qingshan in surprise. Great hero, we entered the sword school to learn swordsmanship since we were young. Who in the surrounding villages doesn't know swordsmanship? Great hero, why do you say that? Sword school? Li Jun was stunned. On the other hand, Ting Qingshan was shocked. Could it be that the sword school was the same as the society in his previous life? Everyone had to learn swordsmanship since they were young? What kind of island was this? Over 10 million people learned swordsmanship. Even in the entire Yangzhou, although there were 200 to 300 million people. However, the number of people who could truly learn inner strength, swordsmanship, and so on was probably only 10 million people. The other ordinary commoners basically didn't have the opportunity. They only knew 2 or 3 moves of the banker. All of them learned swordsmanship? Ting Qingshan asked. Do they learn other weapons? What about axes and sabers? Axes can chop trees, sabers can chop timber. Shangguan Quan hastily said. However, the most powerful one is naturally the swordsmanship. The outstanding disciples of the sword school have very powerful swordsmanship. Yes, do you have any money? Ting Qingshan suddenly asked. Yes, I do. The fisherman hastily took out a beautiful white pearl from his bosom. Ting Qingshan took a roundabout way to ask this fisherman, Shangguan Quan, and finally had a general understanding of the entire Bright Moon Island. The currency of the Bright Moon Island wasn't gold or silver. Instead, it was the unique pearls of the Bright Moon Island. They were divided into purple pearls, white pearls, and gray pearls. The most expensive one was the purple pearls. A purple pearl was roughly equivalent to 100 white pearls, and a white pearl was equivalent to 100 gray pearls. In order to prevent the tungsten wood vessel from being stolen by other fishermen, Ting Qingshan once again returned to the tungsten wood vessel. He rowed and forcefully advanced several li towards the south. However, after a few li, the seawater became turbulent and turbulent. Even though Ting Qingshan rowed very quickly, he was still barely able to offset the speed of the current. From this, it could be seen how fast the current was. Immediately after, Ting Qingshan dived into the water and pulled the iron rope. He pulled the tungsten wood vessel forward for around 2 li and then stuck the iron anchor of the tungsten wood vessel on a reef. The current is so turbulent that even an innate expert would find it very difficult to swim in the undercurrent of a powerful sea. Ting Qingshan was at ease leaving the tungsten wood vessel here. He then dismantled the reincarnation spear and put it into his bag. He also took out an iron leaf fruit and put it into his bag before leaving the tungsten wood vessel. On the beach. Let's go. Ting Qingshan, Li Jun, and the kidnapped fisherman, Shangguan Quan, set off together. On a desolate dirt road, Ting Qingshan and Li Jun carried their bags and set off together with Shangguan Quan. Meanwhile, the whole Gale Eagle was circling in the sky. Shangguan Quan didn't know the relationship between the whole Gale Eagle and the 2 people in front of him. Hero, you're too powerful. You can carry a big boat so far by yourself? Shangguan Quan was full of admiration. That's the legendary 9-rhythm treacherous current. Even the powerful disciples of the Sword Tower wouldn't dare to enter the 9-rhythm treacherous current. Many fishermen would drown if they swam over without permission. Ting Qingshan smiled. 9-rhythm treacherous current? This name wasn't bad. According to Ting Qingshan's observation, the undercurrent was so turbulent that even innate experts could swim by themselves. If they had to drag a big boat forward, even a Golden Dan innate expert wouldn't be able to last long. After all, they couldn't last as long as Ting Qingshan. 9-rhythm? Who named it? Ting Qingshan's heart stirred. It seemed like someone on the Bright Moon Island knew that there were 9 speeds of acceleration. It's been a long time, Shangguan Quan said. In any case, it's been passed down from generation to generation. However, no one was able to pass through the 9-rhythm treacherous current. Hero, did you come from the outside? Shangguan Quan was also a bit aware of this. Ting Qingshan smiled and glanced at him. The less you know, the more you'll live. Shangguan Quan felt a chill in his heart. When he thought of Ting Qingshan's terrifying means, he nodded. Little June, let's take a look at the Bright Moon Island. Later, let's get some food on the boat, Ting Qingshan said. Li Jun nodded. She was tired of eating grilled fish. Ting Qingshan and Li Jun didn't hide the existence of Shangguan Quan when they talked. As an island resident, he would just stroll around and get some goods before leaving. Why would he need to care about others? Not long after, Ting Qingshan and the others walked on a main road and saw a village not far away. That's the village I live in, Shangguan Quan said with a smile. Ting Qingshan glanced over. Ha! Ha! A group of children, who looked to be only 5 or 6 or 7 years old, were holding branches and practicing a set of sword technique. With Ting Qingshan's eyesight, he was able to judge. This sword art is actually a top-notch sword art. The ordinary children in the village practice a top-notch sword art? The children are practicing swordsmanship so that they can enter our northern Yen town's sword school in the future. Shangguan Quan said with a smile. Only by working hard when you're young can you stand out in the 18 towns' sword schools and enter the Sword Tower, becoming a powerful disciple of the Sword Tower. Chapter 309. In this simple village, 5 or 6-year-old children were seriously practicing their sword art. Ting Qingshan and Li Jun looked at each other in shock. Yes, Shangguan Quan, lead the way to your northern Yen village. Ting Qingshan opened his mouth and said. Shangguan Quan hastily responded with a smile. The town is only a few dozen li away from here. It won't take long. He hastily led the way in front. In this village, many villagers also greeted Shangguan Quan. When others asked him why he didn't go to the seaside, Shangguan Quan pretended to be nonchalant and said, Yes, I will accompany my 2 friends to the town. Shangguan Quan had seen Ting Qingshan's martial arts and didn't want to offend Ting Qingshan. He knew that even if the entire village joined forces, they wouldn't be a match for this mysterious man. On the spacious road, the morning sun shone on the land. Ting Qingshan and Li Jun carried their backpacks while Shangguan Quan answered their questions at the side. After chatting for a while, Ting Qingshan confirmed one thing. According to the fishermen, the length and width of Bright Moon Island is only 700 to 800 li. It is about the same size as Jiangning County. The northern sea continent is equivalent to 2 provinces. The difference is very big. Ting Qingshan knew. Bright Moon Island wasn't the northern sea continent. When he asked the fisherman if he knew about the godly Axe Mountain, the fisherman shook his head blankly. You said that the generals are amazing? How many generals are there on Bright Moon Island? Ting Qingshan asked. There are a total of 18 generals in the 18 towns of Bright Moon Island. Shangguan Quan said. Of course, the general of Wuhai town in the north is the island master of Bright Moon Island. The general is the island master? Li Jun asked in surprise. Actually, since Ting Qingshan and Li Jun came by boat, and the questions they asked were all basic information, Shangguan Quan had already guessed that they were outsiders. Although he was surprised, Shangguan Quan was just an ordinary fisherman. He didn't dare to have any other thoughts. Our Bright Moon Island has 18 towns and 18 general residences that have existed for more than 1,000 years. Between the 18 generals there are competitions. If the most powerful general can obtain the support of the Sword Tower, he can become the island master of our Bright Moon Island. Support from the Sword Tower? Ting Qingshan had heard of the Sword Tower more than once. Obviously, in this Bright Moon Island, the 18 generals' statuses were high, but the Sword Tower's status was even higher. Of course. Shangguan Quan's eyes revealed a look of admiration. The Tower Lord of the Sword Tower is absolutely the #1 expert of our Bright Moon Island, an invincible existence. Even with the protection of tens of thousands of soldiers, the Tower Lord of the Sword Tower could easily take the head of the enemy general. Therefore, in the 18 generals' residences, no one dares to disobey the Sword Tower's orders. Ting Qingshan and Li Jun looked at each other. The status of the Sword Tower was indeed extraordinary. Where is the Sword Tower? Ting Qingshan asked. Shangguan Quan pointed to the east. Look over there. Ting Qingshan and Li Jun also looked to the east. Don't you guys see that there are 2 mountains that are close to each other over there? Although it was very far in the east, they could still see the 2 towering mountains. The mountain in the northeast is where the Sword Tower is located. Shangguan Quan looked into the distance with a misty gaze. The mountain in the southeast is the forbidden area of our entire Bright Moon Island. Legend has it that only the most outstanding experts of the Sword Tower have the opportunity to enter the forbidden area occasionally. Sword Tower? Forbidden area? Ting Qingshan looked at the 2 mountains that were adjacent to each other in the distance. Just by relying on his eyesight, Ting Qingshan was unable to determine how far the 2 mountains were from here. How far is the Sword Tower from here? Ting Qingshan asked. About 100 li away. Shangguan Quan said with a smile. Our northern Yen town can be considered as one of the 3 towns closest to the Sword Tower. In our northern Yen town, in some restaurants and other places, we can occasionally meet the disciples of the Sword Tower. Every one of them who can enter the Sword Tower has an extremely powerful sword art. Li Jun asked with a smile, how powerful? To deal with people like me, 1 move is enough. Shangguan Quan said. Li Jun was not surprised, but Ting Qingshan was secretly amazed. Ting Qingshan had seen Shangguan Quan's sword art before. To be able to defeat Shangguan Quan in 1 move, the sword art must be extremely shocking. According to the fishermen, the entire Bright Moon Island has a very long history. It has been passed down from generation to generation and seems to only focus on sword arts. The other saber arts have not been researched much. However, the strength of this sword art. I'm afraid none of the 8 major sects in the land of the 9 prefectures have such achievements. Specializing in sword arts. Unlike the 8 major sects, they need to worry about their own status. There was no doubt that the Bright Moon Island's Sword Tower had control over the Bright Moon Island. After thousands of years, countless generations of people researched sword art. The sword arts of the Sword Tower had indeed reached an unimaginable level. The distance is too far. I have been on the sea for more than 3 months. Moreover, the wind has been favorable for these 3 months. Now, it is estimated to be 80 to 90,000 li away from the land of the 9 prefectures. Ting Qingshan guessed. Drifting on the sea, when the wind was favorable, the speed would be fast. Later on, when the wind was against the wind, even if the sails were controlled, the speed would still be very slow. It is 80 to 90,000 li away from the land of the 9 prefectures. Who would have thought that there would be such a paradise-like island specializing in sword arts? Ting Qingshan exclaimed. More than 10 million people, generation after generation, specializing in sword arts. Halfway through the journey, Ting Qingshan suddenly took out the iron leaf fruit from his bag. What kind of gem is this? Shangguan Quan's eyes widened. It is completely green, about the size of my fist. Moreover, it seems to be faintly transparent. I have never heard of such a big gem on our island. Gem? Ting Qingshan smiled and put his index and middle fingers together. Whoosh! A strand of earthy yellow sword light emerged from the tip of his sword finger, faintly flickering. Innate? Although Shangguan Quan had already realized it, he was still shocked. Ting Qingshan looked at the earthy yellow sword light at the tip of his finger. Actually, this wasn't formed by the innate true origin, but was condensed from the internal supreme force. What is the sword light formed by the internal supreme force called? Sword aura? Ting Qingshan thought to himself. He immediately smiled and used the sword aura to dig out a piece the size of an egg from the iron leaf fruit. Big brother Ting, what are you doing? Li Jun was slightly surprised. Ting Qingshan smiled and put the rest of the iron leaf fruit into his bag. Ting Qingshan rubbed the egg-sized iron leaf fruit between his hands, and the internal supreme force flickered. Immediately, some chips fell off. After a while, the iron leaf fruit became smooth. An egg-sized green pearl was born. Little June, how much do you think this thing is worth? Ting Qingshan looked at Li Jun. Big brother Ting, what do you mean? Li Jun's eyes brightened as she understood. They didn't have the currency of the Bright Moon Island. Ordinary people liked rare and beautiful things. The rarer, more beautiful, and more incredible things were, the more expensive they were. The iron leaf fruit was dug out by Ting Qingshan into such a small piece. It was like a top-grade emerald, emitting a green light in the dark night. It was no wonder that Shangguan Quan called it a gem. Shangguan Quan, how much do you think this is worth? Ting Qingshan looked at Shangguan Quan. Shangguan Quan's eyes brightened as he took a deep breath and said, It's worth at least 100 purple pearls. Or maybe even more. Purple pearls, white pearls, and gray pearls were 3 levels of currency. Ting Qingshan estimated that 100 purple pearls was equivalent to 100 taels of gold in the land of the 9 prefectures. If it was worth that much, it would be enough for Ting Qingshan to exchange for some delicious food, clothes, food, and many other items. Ting Qingshan and the others hurried towards the town of Northern Yin Town. At this moment, at the military camp stationed by the seaside of Northern Yin Town, on top of a tall tower, a soldier was carefully observing the situation. What's that? The soldier carefully looked towards the south. A ship? The soldier's facial expression changed drastically. How is this possible? Why would a ship appear in the southern sea of the 9 rhythm treacherous currents? The soldier didn't dare to believe it. Could it be that someone is riding a ship to search for treasures? However, there are a lot of submerged reefs in the southern sea. With the speed of the 9 rhythm treacherous currents and so many submerged reefs, an ordinary ship should have already been smashed and sunk. Report to Lord Deputy General. The soldier immediately went to report. In the town of Northern Yin Town, among the bustling crowd, Ting Qingshan and Li Jun were strolling around the town with Shangguan Quan. Although it was called a town, it was actually as prosperous as E-City. That's right. Under the control of the Sword Tower, there are almost no wars on the Bright Moon Island. They don't even need to build a city wall. It's normal for it to be more prosperous. Ting Qingshan nodded to himself. Great hero, that is the Southern Sun treasure shop that I mentioned before. Shangguan Quan pointed to a shop not far away. The front door was 5 zhang wide and the shop was luxuriously decorated. The 2 words Southern Sun on the signboard were the same words used in the land of the 9 prefectures. This Bright Moon Island is definitely related to the land of the 9 prefectures. Ting Qingshan was even more certain of this. Although they were separated by thousands of li, the words, languages, and many other things were the same. Sir, what would you like to buy? Just as Ting Qingshan and Li Jun stepped into the treasure shop, a handsome young man carrying a sword on his back greeted them. This handsome young man was slightly shocked when he saw that the bearded man didn't carry a sword. Do you accept precious gems? Ting Qingshan glanced at the handsome young man. The handsome young man politely replied, Of course we do. Ting Qingshan flipped his hand and revealed the egg-sized green pearl. Immediately after, Ting Qingshan put it away. The handsome young man's eyes lit up when he saw it. He immediately determined that it was a treasure and hastily said, Please follow me. In the back hall, Ting Qingshan and Li Jun sat down while Shangguan Quan stood respectfully at the side. An old man was carefully observing the pearl that was separated from the iron leaf fruit. TSK, unbelievable, unbelievable. Such a big pearl. It's green? The old man observed it carefully. Occasionally, he would cover it with a cloth and observe it in the dark. It's faintly glowing. What kind of pearl is this? I've never seen it or heard of it. Ting Qingshan smiled. Not to mention this old man, even he himself had never seen such a strange substance like the iron leaf fruit in the land of the 9 prefectures. Moreover, it's quite heavy. The old man weighed it and said, It's only this big, but it's about 1 jin. What is it? An iron leaf fruit weighed about 5 jin, and this was only a small part of it. Have you seen it? Ting Qingshan frowned. The old man hastily raised his head to look at Ting Qingshan and said with a smile, It's a good item. Give me a price. Not only was it a good item, it was something that had never been seen on the Bright Moon Island. Even an ordinary green pearl of this size would be extremely expensive. Not to mention the fact that it was made of a material that had never been seen before. Chapter 310. 1,000 Purple Pearls. Ting Qingshan directly quoted the price. 1,000 purple pearls were equivalent to 1,000 taels of gold in the land of the 9 prefectures. Ting Qingshan was not Shangguan Quan, a fisherman without much experience. Ting Qingshan was very clear that this was a treasure that had never been seen before. It was not excessive to say that it was worth 10,000 taels of gold. However, no matter how many purple pearls there were, it was meaningless to Ting Qingshan. After all, Ting Qingshan and Li Jun were going to leave after staying for a while. 1,000 purple pearls was enough for Ting Qingshan and Li Jun to buy as much as they wanted. All right, 1,000 purple pearls it is. The old man replied with a smile, not trying to bargain at all. He secretly laughed in his heart. This bearded young man doesn't look like he's a rich man. I guess he doesn't know the market price of these treasures. He didn't know that Ting Qingshan came to Bright Moon Island to buy some supplies and was about to leave. Here are 1,000 purple pearls. The old man handed a big bag to Ting Qingshan. Ting Qingshan opened it and saw many beautiful purple pearls. However, since they could be used as currency, it was obvious that there were many purple pearls on Bright Moon Island. Ting Qingshan weighed it and estimated that there were around 1,000 purple pearls. He then stood up and said, Yes, we are even. May I ask, where did you two get these green pearls? The old man hastily asked. Ting Qingshan smiled and left with Li Jun, leaving behind only one sentence. Just luck. Shangguan Quan obediently followed Ting Qingshan and Li Jun. In this town, Ting Qingshan bought a bag of grain, some seasonings for cooking, many fruits, and some food that could be stored for a long time. He also bought a lot of clothes, shoes, and socks. I finally have enough clothes to change into. At this moment, Ting Qingshan had changed into a clean blue outfit. His long black hair was loose, and his face was covered with stubble. After everything was bought, the sun was high up in the sky. Ting Qingshan and Li Jun decided to have a good meal in this town. How could the food they ate on the sea compare to the food in this restaurant? Hero, this Golden Sword restaurant is the best restaurant in our northern Yen town. After Ting Qingshan said, Go to the best restaurant, don't save money for us. Shangguan Quan took Ting Qingshan and the others to the Golden Sword restaurant. On the second floor of the Golden Sword restaurant, It was not yet noon, so there were not many people. There seems to be a lot of variety. Ting Qingshan flipped through the menu and passed it to Li Jun. Little Jun, choose whatever you like. You sit down too. Ting Qingshan looked at Shangguan Quan. Eat with us, run with us for a day, we won't treat you badly. Shangguan Quan sat down in surprise and said, Thank you, hero. Let's see what the taste is like here. Li Jun said with a smile. She and Ting Qingshan ordered a total of 18 dishes. It was indeed extravagant for 3 people to eat 18 dishes. However, Ting Qingshan and the others came with the idea of trying something new. After a while, the table was already filled with dishes. Ting Qingshan used his chopsticks to eat again and again. Not bad, not bad, the taste is indeed not bad. Anyone who suddenly ate such a sumptuous feast after drifting on the sea for more than 3 months would exclaim in admiration. Li Jun was a girl, so she was more reserved and ate slowly. She was not like Ting Qingshan, who wolfed down the food. Clack, clack, clack. 2 youths wearing white outfits and carrying cyan-sheathed swords on their backs went up the stairs to the 2nd floor. Hero, look. Shangguan Quan was slightly excited as he said, Those 2 are disciples of the Sword Tower. Ting Qingshan turned his head and glanced at the 2 youths. There was a sword-shaped emblem on the left chest of the white outfits they were wearing. Look at their eyes and their steps. They look like expert swordsmen. Ting Qingshan thought to himself. Of course. Even though he admired them, Ting Qingshan did not take them seriously. There were only 10 million people in the entire Bright Moon Island. According to the ratio, there might not even be an emptiness realm expert. According to Emperor Yu, the 9 sources of the spirit veins of heaven and earth were all in the land of the 9 prefectures, and he used the 9 cauldrons to suppress them. The land of the 9 prefectures was the core of the entire world. The spiritual qi of the heavens and earth was the most abundant there. The spiritual qi of some ordinary islands in the northern sea continent could not compare to the land of the 9 prefectures. It would be even more difficult for other places to produce emptiness realm experts than the land of the 9 prefectures. When the 2 disciples of the Sword Tower came up, they attracted the attention of many people on the 2nd floor. The 2 disciples of the Sword Tower did not mind as they were already used to it. Senior Marshal brother, let's sit over there. The 2 disciples of the Sword Tower chose to sit by the window, which was not far from Ting Qingshan's table. Junior Marshal brother, look over there. That purple-clothed girl seems to be looking at us. This purple-clothed girl doesn't look like an ordinary villager. She should be from a large clan. Northern Yen Town is only so big. If a beautiful girl like her was from Northern Yen Town, we should know her. The 2 disciples of the Sword Tower also smiled and raised their cups to Li Jun. Miss, there are only 2 people at our table. Why don't you come to our table? Isn't it wonderful to drink and chat together? One of the paler youths said with a smile. The disciples of the Sword Tower were all geniuses of the Bright Moon Island. Each and every one of them was arrogant. At Ting Qingshan's table, Ting Qingshan and Li Jun glanced at each other and couldn't help but laugh. Ting Qingshan chuckled and said, You 2 can drink. Don't have any ideas about my sister. The 2 disciples of the Sword Tower's faces darkened. On the Bright Moon Island, there weren't many people who dared to speak like this to the disciples of the Sword Tower. Who are you? Tell us your name. One of the dark-skinned youths frowned and shouted. Tell us your name? Little fellow, be obedient and drink your wine. As Ting Qingshan spoke, he raised his head and drank the entire cup. He clicked his tongue as he reminisced, This wine tastes pretty good. Phew. The 2 disciples of the Sword Tower stood up and stared at Ting Qingshan with sharp eyes. The dark-skinned youth said coldly, Brother, your words should be considered as a provocation to the disciples of the Sword Tower. The entire 2nd floor of the restaurant quietened down and looked over. Provocation. Ting Qingshan turned his head and looked at the 2 of them. Provoke you? He couldn't help but laugh and continued to drink, completely ignoring the two of them. Arrogant! The dark-skinned youth snorted angrily. Let's see if you have the ability to be arrogant. With a clang sound, he pulled out the sharp sword on his back. A disagreement and a sword was drawn against each other. Take this! The skinned youth shouted sternly. A sharp cold light instantly streaked across the sky and pierced towards Ting Qingshan's throat. Ting Qingshan held the wine cup in his right hand and waved his left hand without even looking at it. Pa! Ting Qingshan's palm directly grabbed the sharp sword. The skinned youth's facial expression changed drastically. He tried to pull out the sword, but Ting Qingshan's palm was behind the sword. No matter how much strength he exerted, he couldn't make the sword move. How is this possible? How can his palm grab the sword? Is his hand comparable to a divine weapon? Senior! The pale-skinned youth was shocked and wanted to pull out the sword. Ting Qingshan's left hand shook violently. Gotcha! The skinned youth felt his wrist instantly crack. The sword's hilt directly hit his abdomen. With a burst of sharp pain, his whole body was thrown into the air. At the same time, the junior behind him was also knocked to the side. The tables and chairs were knocked and rolled away. The two of them also fell to the ground in embarrassment. What kind of strength is this? He grabbed the sword's blade while I grabbed the sword's hilt. Yet, he was able to crack my wrist. What kind of strength circulation method is this? The pair of prodigies fell to the ground dumbfounded. Ting Qingshan threw the sword away. Clang! It hit the ground and made a crisp sound. Two little guys. Ting Qingshan stood up and looked at the two with a smile. Provoke? You said I provoked you? What qualifications do you have for me to provoke you? The two disciples of the Sword Tower looked at each other. Indeed, in front of this mysterious expert, their behavior was indeed ridiculous. Provoke them? Did the two of them have the qualifications for the other party to provoke them? To be able to become disciples of the Sword Tower, it means that the two of you have good talent. Ting Qingshan looked at the two of them and said with a faint smile, however, if you want to become a true expert, talent and comprehension are secondary. Perseverance and temperament are more important. Don't put on airs in the restaurant all day. If you have time, meditate and train diligently. Otherwise, it will be like rowing a boat against the current. If you don't advance, you will fall back. Ting Qingshan's words caused the expressions of the two disciples of the Sword Tower to change constantly. Ashamed? Difficult to endure? Thank you, Senior, for your guidance. One of them stood up and said respectfully. The other also stood up and expressed his gratitude respectfully. Little June, let's go. Ting Qingshan also ate and drank to his heart's content. Okay. Li Jun smiled and left side by side with Ting Qingshan. Shangguan Quan, who was at the side, immediately followed. When he noticed that the people on the second floor of the restaurant were looking at Ting Qingshan as if they were looking at an otherworldly expert, Shangguan Quan immediately puffed out his chest and followed Ting Qingshan and Li Jun down the stairs with large stride. At this moment, Shangguan Quan felt very proud. At noon, on the southern beach of the Bright Moon Island, a large number of soldiers wearing simple armor and carrying sharp swords on their backs stood on the beach, clustered around a high-ranking officer. At this moment, in the midst of the turbulent waves, a speedboat was connected to the tungsten wood vessel. Sir, the iron anchor is stuck in the reef. It's very difficult to get it out. A loud shout came from afar. Brothers, there's no way to get the iron anchor out. Ting Qingshan didn't simply drop the anchor. Instead, he dived to the bottom of the sea and used the iron anchor to get stuck in the reef. No matter how hard the others tried to lift the anchor, they couldn't get it out. Cut off the iron chain, cut it off. The high-ranking officer roared from the beach. Yes, sir. A voice came from afar. F***CK. The high-ranking officer cursed. He actually stopped so far away. I spent a lot of effort to get there, but the iron anchor is actually stuck in the reef. This high-ranking officer was indeed furious. He had been busy since the morning, but he still hadn't finished it. It had been almost 4 hours. Actually, he couldn't be blamed. Although the 9-rhythm treacherous current was the number 1 treacherous current closest to the beach and wouldn't make them helpless, it was still very troublesome. Not long after, the tungsten wood vessel, which had its iron anchor removed, quickly flowed along the seawater towards the beach and soon stopped on the beach. "Sir, this is a good boat. There are many dents at the bottom of the boat, but it's not damaged. It must have collided with the reef many times, but it's not damaged at all." The soldiers who got off the boat were very excited. "It's definitely a good boat. Even our military camp doesn't have such a good boat." "Sir, I've never seen the wood of this boat before. It's not the wood on our island." "Sir, there are many treasures in the cabin. They are all fist-sized gems that I've never seen before." The hundreds of soldiers on the beach suddenly became excited. On the deck of the tungsten wood vessel. "Wow, such a big gem!" The high-ranking officer held the fist-sized iron leaf fruit. Under the sunlight, it was somewhat translucent and dazzled his eyes. His face was full of excitement as he said, "Ha ha, brothers, we're rich! We're rich!" Screech, a high-pitched bird cry suddenly sounded. P.S. Today's 3 chapters have been updated. Tomato has already added 1 chapter, so there are still 2 chapters left. Tomato is working hard. Everyone, come and throw a monthly vote or recommendation vote. Right now, the ranking is rather dangerous. Chapter 3:11. Beside the beach, on a desolate path with trees and vegetation, Ting Qingshan, Li Jun, and the fisherman, Shangguan Quan, looked at the large group of soldiers surrounding the tungsten wood vessel through the sparse vegetation. The whole Gale Eagle was circling high up in the sky. "This is bad." Shangguan Quan's complexion changed greatly. "Hero, your treasured vessel has been discovered by the soldiers of the general's mansion. The treasured vessel was able to survive the submerged reef of the 9-rhythm treacherous currents without any damage. These soldiers must be very envious. Hero, do you have any other treasures on this treasured vessel?" Ting Qingshan looked into the distance. "Does that fist-sized green gem count?" "Of course." Shangguan Quan was shocked. "Hero, it will be very difficult to take back your treasured vessel." "Who are they? General's mansion?" Ting Qingshan was not anxious. At least everything was still under his control, and the vessel had not been transported away. Shangguan Quan hastily explained, "Hero, as I said before, there are a total of 18 generals' mansions in the 18 towns of Bright Moon Island. The towns near the sea have many soldiers stationed at the seaside barrack. These soldiers should be the soldiers of my northern Yen town's general's mansion stationed at the seaside." Hearing this, Ting Qingshan nodded his head and looked at Shangguan Quan with a smile. "Shangguan Quan, you ran with us for half a day. You did well. This is your reward." While speaking, Ting Qingshan took out a small bag from his bosom. Inside the bag, there were a handful of scattered purple pearls and gave them to Shangguan Quan. There were not many purple pearls in this small bag, but there were at least 100 of them. "Purple pearls for me?" Shangguan Quan suddenly opened his eyes wide and held his breath. Shangguan Quan's eyes were a little red. His mind replayed the scenes of the hardships he had suffered all these years. As a man, supporting a family was too tiring. "I can buy a good sword for my son, and I can also afford to treat my wife's illness." Thinking about it, Shangguan Quan was about to kneel down. "These things are useless to us." Ting Qingshan extended his hand and supported Shangguan Quan's shoulder. No matter how hard Shangguan Quan tried, he was unable to kneel down. "Benefactor." Shangguan Quan was grateful. He had thought that he was going to suffer today, but who would have thought that a huge pie would fall from the sky? Over 100 purple pearls, if used sparingly, it would be enough for his family to use for the rest of his life. "All right, you can go back," Ting Qingshan ordered. "Benefactor," Shangguan Quan hastily said, "you must be careful. Even a good man can't fight against so many people. Also, the army's sword formation was very powerful. It was said that even the innate rankers had reached the level of innate. Facing the great sword array, once you are trapped, it will be very dangerous. This time, Shangguanquan was truly thinking for the sake of Ting Qingshan duo. Ting Qingshan and Li Jun looked at each other. Great sword formation? A threat to an innate? Yes. Ting Qingshan nodded. Shangguanquan bowed again and again, then quietly left, leaving only Ting Qingshan and Shangguanquan. Next to Ting Qingshan and Li Jun were two oversized bags. These were the rations, food, ingredients, clothes, and other items they bought from the town. Big brother Ting, what should we do? Li Jun looked at Ting Qingshan and asked, kill them and then leave? Li Jun had experienced so much. When she was a young girl, she had personally killed all the murderers in front of her teacher. With this experience, Li Jun naturally wasn't a soft-hearted person. There are several hundred people here. Ting Qingshan glanced at the distance and said, it depends on the situation. If we can avoid killing, then we won't kill. If they are really difficult to deal with, then they can't blame us. Ting Qingshan's eyes were calm. Several hundred soldiers? Even if their swordsmanship was superb, Ting Qingshan didn't put them in his eyes. Let's go. Ting Qingshan carried the two big bags on his shoulders and carried a package on his back. He strode towards the beach. Li Jun also quietly followed behind him. On the beach, many soldiers were on the tungsten wood vessel. Quick, what are you doing up there? Everyone, hurry up and row the boat to the barrack. At this moment, the high-ranking officer was holding two fist-sized iron leaf fruits in his hands as he roared. Lord, this vessel only has 2 oars, and they are both extraordinarily long. We can't row them at all. The group of soldiers on the tungsten wood vessel were also anxious. What? The high-ranking officer glared. Previously, he had boarded the vessel to look at the iron leaf fruits and didn't notice that there were only 2 oars. How could ordinary soldiers row the tungsten wood vessel, which was over 10 zhang long, with 2 oars and was within the range of the 9-rhythm treacherous current? Motherf ***, it's really troublesome. The high-ranking officer frowned and immediately shouted to the surrounding people, brothers, hurry up and find ropes. Everyone, put in more effort and drag this big vessel back to the barrack. This time there are so many treasures. Hand over half of them and the rest will be divided among us brothers. Okay. These soldiers were so excited that their eyes turned red like calves. Some boarded the boat to find ropes, some dismantled the fishing nets, and some went to the nearby fishermen to ask for rope. In short, everyone was thinking of a way. At this moment, everyone, what are you busy with? A hearty laughter suddenly resounded, as if an acquaintance was greeting someone. The voice was so loud that it was like the rumbling of thunder. Immediately, the high-ranking officer and all the soldiers turned their heads to look. They saw a young man with long hair draped over his shoulders and a face full of stubble. He was carrying 2 extremely large sacks that were 1 size bigger than him. Beside him was a pretty girl dressed in purple. A wild beast and a fairy. When the 2 of them stood together, it was indeed astonishing. F***ck off, F***ck off. Immediately, a soldier shouted, the general's mansion is handling a matter. Those who are not involved, get out of the way. Seeing Ting Qingshan and Zhang Wuji walking over, a soldier immediately wanted to push Ting Qingshan further away. Get lost. A soldier pushed Ting Qingshan's chest with his large palm. Get lost. Phew. The soldier was directly sent flying for a full 6 to 7 zhang. Splash. His entire body fell into the sea, splashing white waves. Second brother. A soldier's eyes instantly turned red, and he immediately looked at Ting Qingshan. You bastard! According to common sense, a person would be sent flying 6 to 7 meters high. Normally, this kind of recoil would be enough to kill a person. Ting Qingshan carried 2 extremely large sacks and walked with large stride. Puchi! The soldier pulled out his sword and stabbed at Ting Qingshan. When the sword stabbed out, it was as if there was a murderous aura pervading the air. Ting Qingshan, who was walking normally, only took a simple step forward and strangely dodged the sword. Then, his shoulder collided with the soldier's body, and the soldier was also shaken to the point of rolling 3 to 4 times on the sand. Bastard! You're courting death! Instantly, the surrounding hundreds of soldiers were enraged. With a series of clang, 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 hundreds of sharp swords had already been unsheathed. Pooh! At this moment, a figure emerged from the sea and spat out a mouthful of saliva. His face was filled with ecstasy as he shouted, "I didn't die! Ha ha, I didn't die!" The soldier who had tumbled a few times turned his head to look, and his face was filled with surprise. "Second brother, you didn't die. I am still alive and well. I am not injured at all." The soldier in the water was also very surprised. Immediately, the surrounding hundreds of soldiers looked at this scene in astonishment. He was sent flying 6 to 7 zhang from the ground, but he was actually completely fine? This was too strange. In an instant, almost all the soldiers understood. This boorish man carrying the extremely large sacks was a true super expert. At least, his method of exerting his strength was much stronger than theirs. Whoosh! Whoosh! Ting Qingshan and Li Jun both took a few steps on the beach and jumped at the same time. Li Jun was also an expert at the peak of the post-liminary realm, so it was not difficult for her to jump onto the deck of the tungsten wood vessel. While the soldiers of the northern Yen town's general's mansion were still in a daze, Ting Qingshan and Li Jun had already boarded the vessel. "What are you guys doing?" Some of the valiant soldiers on the tungsten wood vessel immediately berated. "What am I doing?" Ting Qingshan exerted force with his right foot and opened the cabin door. Soon after, he used his innate true origin on the 2 large sacks and lightly threw them to the bottom of the cabin. Ting Qingshan immediately raised his head and looked at the group of people. He smiled and said, "I haven't asked what you guys are doing yet. All of you, get off the boat." Ting Qingshan walked over. "You want us to get off the boat?" The group of soldiers glared. On the Bright Moon Island, the 18 generals' mansions could do whatever they wanted. "I told you to get down." Ting Qingshan's body moved like an illusion and directly rushed towards the dozens of people on the deck, waving his hands. Phew! Phew! One by one, the soldiers were thrown into the ocean by Ting Qingshan like sandbags. "Stop!" An angry roar sounded. "You're courting death." The dozens of people were enraged, but it was useless no matter how angry they were. In just the time of 2 breaths, the dozens of people were thrown off the tungsten wood vessel. Plop! 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 One by one, the soldiers fell into the ocean, causing the seawater to splash into the sky. What are you doing?" The high-ranking officer was so angry that his eyes turned red. He angrily roared, "This treasured vessel belongs to our northern Yen town's general's mansion. You dare to snatch it in front of hundreds of soldiers? Are you courting death? Yours?" On the tungsten wood vessel, Ting Qingshan glanced at him and laughed. "The northern Yen town's general's mansion is one of the 18 generals' mansions. Are you robbers? Looking at your attire, you should be a high-ranking officer. Aren't you ashamed of saying this? Aren't you ashamed? The ship is yours now. Ha ha." Ting Qingshan's laughter caused the high-ranking officer's face to turn unsightly. "Let go of the vessel and leave quickly. I will forgive you for your offense. Otherwise, even if you are a member of the Sword Tower, our general's mansion has the right to sentence you to death." The high-ranking officer shouted angrily. The hundreds of soldiers held sharp swords in their hands and coldly stared at Ting Qingshan on the tungsten wood vessel. Suddenly, a clear and melodious voice sounded. "Big brother Ting, the iron leaf fruits are not in the cabin. They're all gone." "Iron leaf fruits?" The hundreds of soldiers were slightly startled. On the bow of the tungsten wood vessel, the young boorish man with long hair draped over his shoulders and a face full of stubble laughed loudly. His body was like a sharp arrow piercing through the air. With this leap, he actually traversed nearly 30 zhang, directly passing from the tungsten wood vessel to the crowd of soldiers on the beach. Let go! Ting Qingshan snatched the big fishing net that contained the iron leaf fruits from the front of the group of soldiers. You, the high-ranking officer's face turned ashen. The one with the green face. Ting Qingshan looked over and said, "Stop putting on airs. Give me the 2 iron leaf fruits in your hands." Chapter 312. The high-ranking military officer was furious. "Oh, it's the 2 fist-sized green gems in your hands." Ting Qingshan carried a large fishing net and walked over with large strides. The surrounding soldiers were all holding sharp swords, but they didn't dare to act on their own. Everyone looked at the high-ranking military officer from time to time. After the short encounter, everyone knew that this young boorish man possessed terrifying strength. If they were to really start a fight, even if they could kill the other party, they would suffer heavy casualties. It had been a long time since the Bright Moon Island had a large number of casualties. The soldiers were somewhat hesitant. "The general's mansion is handling a matter, don't cause trouble here." The high-ranking military officer's face darkened as he pointed at Ting Qingshan and shouted, "These gems also belong to the general's mansion. Put them down." Although they realized that the person in front of them was a super-powerful expert, the general's mansion was used to being overbearing. Moreover, this was the territory of the northern Yen town. "Humph, I gave you face, but you don't want it." Ting Qingshan's face darkened. His body swayed. "Stop him." The high-ranking military officer threw the 2 iron leaf fruits on the beach and simultaneously pulled out the sharp sword at his waist. "Stop!" A dozen or so nearby soldiers shouted angrily and thrust the sharp swords in their hands. After Ting Qingshan used crossing worlds, he moved like a ghost. Within the narrow area, only 2 of the dozen soldiers could barely reach Ting Qingshan. Clang! Clang! With 2 clear sounds, the 2 sharp swords broke. Bang! Ting Qingshan moved his right leg. His kick was so fast that the high-ranking military officer, who was at the peak of the post-liminary realm, was kicked away without any resistance. Pooh! Blood spurted out of his mouth as he fell heavily on the beach. After Ting Qingshan picked up the 2 iron leaf fruits with his left hand, he quickly rushed towards the tungsten wood vessel. The high-ranking military officer, who fell on the sand, raised his head. There was still a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. He was so angry that his eyes were about to split open as he roared, "Get into formation! Great sword formation! Kill!" Hundreds of soldiers' eyes were red as they prepared to get into formation. Phew! Who? The ghost-like figure flashed past the crowd and leaped into the air. He directly leaped over 20 zhang high and nearly 30 zhang away, turning into a small dot in the sky. The several hundred soldiers could only stare at him helplessly. Soon after, the figure landed on the deck of the tungsten wood vessel and placed the fishing net that had collided with a large number of iron leaf fruits into the cabin. "General, what should we do?" The group of soldiers was a little anxious. The sword formation was powerful, but at the very least, its power could only be unleashed when others were within the sword formation. But the other party was so fast, and they had already boarded the ship. How were they going to surround them? F***ck him. The general stood up and glared into the distance. "Brothers of the Ghost Domain Water Camp, surround that ship. Don't let him escape." When the dozens of soldiers who were pushed into the sea by Ting Qingshan heard the order, they quickly surrounded the shore of the tungsten wood vessel and pulled out their sharp swords. "If he wants to escape, then destroy this ship, destroy it," the officer roared. "Yes, my lord." Dozens of soldiers roared in unison. Ting Qingshan stood at the bow of the tungsten wood vessel. Big brother Ting. Li Jun's charming face had a hint of killing intent. These people are annoying. If I had known earlier, I would have been ruthless from the beginning. Ting Qingshan also frowned. He immediately looked at the blood-stained and furious officer on the beach not far away. He also felt that the matter was troublesome. Dozens of soldiers are surrounding the bottom of the tungsten wood vessel. The tungsten wood vessel's body is very hard. Tungsten wood is harder than steel, and its toughness is even better. However, it's impossible for it to withstand the sword tip of an inner strength expert. An inner strength expert's slap was enough to crack steel. Moreover, when the attack power was concentrated at the sword tip, the penetrating power of the sword tip was even more astonishing. The tungsten wood vessel could withstand the collision of the reef, but it was impossible for it to withstand the piercing of the soldiers' sword tips. On the beach, after the officer gave the order, he looked towards the young boorish man at the bow of the vessel. Ha ha! The young boorish man's laughter shook the heavens. Soldiers, this ship is mine, and the things on the ship are also mine. What right do you have to stop me today? The officer glared angrily at Ting Qingshan at the bow of the vessel. He had long realized that this ship might belong to this mysterious expert. However, so what if it belonged to the other party? Just because you say it's yours? The officer laughed angrily. Oh, today you say that this ship is yours. Tomorrow, if another expert comes and says that this ship is his. The day after tomorrow, maybe a general will come and ask for this ship. Ha! Tell me, what should I do? This sea belongs to my northern Yen town. All the ownerless things in the sea belong to my northern Yen town's general's mansion. The officer said loudly. I will still say this. Leave quickly and I will spare your life. Otherwise, on this bright moon island, don't even think about escaping. Hundreds of soldiers stared at Ting Qingshan. Xiao! An ear-piercing sound suddenly rang high up in the sky. Ting Qingshan raised his head and looked. With his amazing eyesight, he instantly saw a whistling arrow shooting high up into the sky. A whistling arrow? Ting Qingshan's expression changed. His gaze turned cold as he looked at the officer. The officer smiled confidently. In this northern Yen town, our general's mansion is the heavens. Even if you are an innate expert, you still have to be obedient here. Let me tell you, everyone will be here soon. There was something that he didn't say. This whistling arrow was the highest level of the distress arrow, cloud-piercing arrow. Once the cloud-piercing arrow was shot, everyone who saw it would gather. I gave you face, but you don't want it. Ting Qingshan's expression darkened. A ray of light streaked across the sky. Whoosh! He shot directly into the crowd. Set up the formation. A high-pitched and sharp shout rang out. The soldiers who were already prepared immediately formed a large sword formation. When Ting Qingshan rushed into the crowd, he was surrounded by one of the large sword formations. This large sword formation is quite interesting. Ting Qingshan instantly realized that this large sword formation was formed by 36 soldiers. These 36 soldiers were divided into 3 layers. When each layer attacked Ting Qingshan, they covered the sky and the earth like a surging sea wave. 12 people, 12 swords, attacking at the same time. When the power of the 12 swords is stacked together, it has a penetrating force of several 10,000 jin. Even an emptiness Dan innate expert would have to use all his strength to deal with it. Moreover, after the 12 of them stabbed once, they immediately retreated and the second wave of attack came. The 3 layers, inner, middle and outer, formed an endless situation. When Ting Qingshan fell into the formation, he felt that the 36 people had transformed into wave. Moreover, the 36 people cooperated very well, allowing the attacks to be continuous. If it was a normal emptiness Dan innate expert, he might really be hit if he wasn't careful. If there were 5 to 6 large sword formations surrounding him, the innate expert's true origin would be exhausted. Haha, interesting. Ting Qingshan laughed loudly. His arms were like two iron rods as he swung them. Boom! More than 10 figures were sent flying from the impact. Whoosh! Ting Qingshan took advantage of the chaos in the sword formation and immediately leaped over 20 zhang, landing in the direction of the high-ranking officer. Not good. The high-ranking officer didn't even have time to escape. However, Ting Qingshan grabbed his collar and lifted him up. Didn't you want to capture me? Ting Qingshan looked at him. You. The high-ranking officer was shocked and angry. I am from the general's residence. Ting Qingshan's knee struck the high-ranking officer's abdomen. The high-ranking officer's face turned pale, and his eyes widened. Who do you think you are? Ting Qingshan sneered and casually threw the high-ranking officer. The high-ranking officer fell on the sand pile, and his eyes were filled with horror. My Dantian, my Dantian. With the knee strike, Ting Qingshan had already broken his Dantian. Ting Qingshan wasn't the kind of person who would be merciful to people who didn't want face. He didn't even care about 300 soldiers. He even dared to kill an army of 100,000. What was 300 people? You. The high-ranking officer still couldn't believe that the other party was so unscrupulous. He was wrong. He was ridiculously wrong. The 18 generals' residences all had thousands of years of history. They were indeed deeply rooted. However, what did this have to do with Ting Qingshan? Ting Qingshan was basically an outsider. Even if the general of the general's residence came, Ting Qingshan would still kill him with one punch. In northern Yen town, in an ancient mansion that occupied an extremely large area. Lord General, the military camp at the South Sea sent a cloud-piercing arrow for help. A soldier reported anxiously. The white-haired elder who was sitting cross-legged under the pavilion and meditating with his eyes closed suddenly opened his eyes. Cloud-piercing arrow? Quickly go and invite Master Lin. The elder immediately stood up. His face was full of solemnity. Unless it is the most crucial moment, the cloud-piercing arrow is not allowed. Did they encounter an attack from overseas demonic beasts? Or is there a traitor? In the bright Moon Island's 9-rhythm treacherous current in the South Sea. Voila, the deep and unfathomable sea water was surging. A piece of reef emerged from the water. On this dark reef, a middle-aged man wearing a loose white robe with long hair, a white face and narrow eyes was sitting cross-legged. On his back, there was a green-sheathed godly sword. He just sat on the reef with his eyes closed. The strangest thing was that the seawater around the reef he was sitting on would actually flow away before it touched the reef. It was as if there was an invisible force controlling it. Shio! A loud sound resonated in the distant sky. The white-robed, beardless middle-aged man opened his eyes. His gaze was like 2 rays of sword light. It was very frightening. Cloud-piercing arrow? Could it be that another demonic beast from overseas has come to my bright Moon Island to behave atrociously? Who? The middle-aged man's body suddenly flashed and disappeared from the reef. He transformed into an illusory white afterimage and stepped on the surface of the sea at a terrifying speed, rapidly rushing towards the direction of the cloud-piercing arrow. The sea under his feet was like land. After Ting Qingshan broke the sword formation and destroyed the dantian of the high-ranking officer. Many of the soldiers were stunned as well. Ting Qingshan then quickly returned to the tungsten wood vessel. At this moment, no soldiers below dared to threaten Ting Qingshan anymore. Even the sword formation was useless, so they had no other choice. Big Brother Ting, one of the anchors was chopped off. Li Jun hastily said, "Forget it. Don't bother with them. Set sail, let's go." Ting Qingshan immediately walked to the 2 long oars, grabbed the 2 long oars with his strong hands, and started shaking them. Suddenly, from the corner of his eyes, Ting Qingshan noticed a white shadow flashing rapidly along the beach. Soon, it arrived at the numerous soldiers. Ting Qingshan was secretly shocked. Such a fast speed. Ah! When the high-ranking officer whose dantian was destroyed saw the approaching person, his eyes immediately emitted an indescribable radiance. He hastily shouted with a hoarse voice, "Tower Lord!" Whoosh! The white-robed man moved and leaped into the sky from 20 to 30 zhang away. He landed on the railing of the tungsten wood vessel and stared coldly at Ting Qingshan. When Ting Qingshan saw the approaching person, he grinned and said, "Good Qin Gong." Chapter 313. Dressed in a loose white robe, his eyes were like sword rays, condensed and unmoving. Standing on the railing of the tungsten wood vessel, the Lord of the Sword Tower's robe fluttered in the sea breeze. "Tower Lord!" The high-ranking officer ran on the beach in a sorry state and shouted hoarsely, "I don't know where this young boorish man came from." The soldiers of the general's mansion obtained this treasured vessel from the sea with great difficulty. But this young boorish man said that this vessel belongs to him. Relying on his superior strength, he snatched it from our hands, broke my dantian, and crippled my inner strength. Tower Lord! Tower Lord, please uphold justice for us!" The high-ranking officer roared with all his might. "Tower Lord, please uphold justice for us!" Immediately, the hundreds of soldiers shouted one by one. Their voices rumbled and echoed in the air above the surrounding beach. These soldiers looked at the Lord of the Sword Tower with a trace of worship and respect. The legendary Lord of the Sword Tower was the most powerful and invincible existence on the entire island. The Bright Moon Island was only so big, and many people had seen the Lord of the Sword Tower. "Don't worry." The Lord of the Sword Tower's cold voice sounded. Immediately there was silence. The Lord of the Sword Tower stood on the railing of the tungsten wood vessel and looked at the young boorish man with disheveled hair and a face full of stubble. Needless to say, the hundreds of soldiers of the general's mansion possessed strength. With the arrogance of the soldiers, to force them to submit and admit defeat, one had to at least have the strength of an innate expert. Moreover, only a few of the soldiers were injured, except for the high-ranking officer whose dantian was broken. He didn't injure the soldiers, but made them fear him. This young man's strength should be very strong. A trace of curiosity arose in the Lord of the Sword Tower's heart. Of course, at this moment, the Lord of the Sword Tower did not put Ting Qingshan in his eyes. As the #1 expert of the Bright Moon Island, he had been invincible for too long. "Why did you snatch this ship?" The Lord of the Sword Tower looked down and asked coldly. Before Ting Qingshan could speak, Li Jun, who was beside him, said with dissatisfaction, "You are so unreasonable. Why didn't you ask clearly? This ship belongs to us in the first place, and those soldiers of the general's mansion wanted to snatch it because they coveted our ship. It's ours, of course we have to take it back." "Yours?" The Tower Lord carefully examined the tungsten wood vessel. "Yes, this is our ship." Ting Qingshan smiled. "We'll take back what's ours, right? Just now, many soldiers came to stop us and even attacked us. That general also spoke rudely again and again. I only punished him slightly and didn't kill him. The Tower Lord of the Sword Tower, so, you shouldn't ask us like this. You should ask those soldiers." After the Tower Lord carefully observed the tungsten wood vessel, he turned his head and looked at the soldiers behind him. The group of soldiers were somewhat hesitant and did not speak. "Floor Master." The general's eyes reddened. "We've already carefully inspected this ship. The material of this ship is not from our Bright Moon Island at all. Furthermore, inside the cabin, there were fist-sized green gems. Our Bright Moon Island has never had this kind of gem before. So, I'm sure." The captain stared at the distant Ting Qingshan. "This ship doesn't belong to our Bright Moon Island. It's a ship from the outside. If this ship really belongs to the two of them, then the man and woman are not from our Bright Moon Island. They are outsiders." "Outsiders?" The Tower Lord squinted his long and narrow eyes. He immediately looked at the silver inlaid marks on the side of the ship and the material of the entire ship. He even looked at the sail under the mast. The corner of the Tower Lord's mouth curled into a strange smile as he looked at Ting Qingshan and Li Jun. If this ship is yours, then you are outsiders? Li Jun and Ting Qingshan looked at each other. If they said they were from the Bright Moon Island, then this ship wouldn't belong to them. After all, the Bright Moon Island couldn't build a tungsten wood vessel. They didn't even have tungsten wood, so how could they build it? We are outsiders. Ting Qingshan nodded. Ting Qingshan didn't care about the Bright Moon Island. An island with a population of 10 million would only have a powerful army of 100,000. It would be good if there were 2 or 3 Golden Dan innate experts. Even if all of them came, Ting Qingshan wouldn't be afraid. Moreover, the Tower Master of the Sword Tower, who had appeared before him, was already recognized as the strongest expert on the island. However, judging from his Qin Gong, he had yet to reach the Emptiness Realm. If he hadn't reached the Emptiness Realm, why would Ting Qingshan be afraid? They really are outsiders. Interesting. The Tower Lord looked at Ting Qingshan carefully. Tower Lord. The captain shouted anxiously in the shallow water by the beach. They all admit that they are outsiders and not from our Bright Moon Island. However, they are so arrogant in our Bright Moon Island. It's obvious that they don't care about our Bright Moon Island. These people must be punished severely. Ting Qingshan smiled and glanced at the captain who was shouting in the sea. The captain was right. Ting Qingshan did not care about the Bright Moon Island. Shut up. A cold voice sounded. The captain, who had a crazy look on his face, froze like a duck that was being strangled. Then, he lowered his head and didn't dare to make a sound. He finally remembered the identity of the other party, the Tower Lord of the Sword Tower, the most powerful expert in the entire Bright Moon Island. The other party didn't need a captain whose inner strength was destroyed to tell him what to do. Our Bright Moon Island hasn't had outsiders for a very long time. The last time someone came was over 100 years ago. The Tower Lord looked at Ting Qingshan and asked, "Which place are you from? Heavenly Flipping Island or Cyan Wood Island?" Ting Qingshan and Li Jun were both slightly stunned. Heavenly Flipping Island? Cyan Wood Island? Yes. Ting Qingshan suddenly understood. I set out to sea in July. The wind was right, so I drifted northward from the land of the 9 prefectures. With the wind, I could travel 800 to 900 li or even 1,000 li in one day and one night. After 3 months, I traveled at a slower speed, but I still traveled about 70 to 80,000 li. 70 to 80,000 li from the northern prairie. Along the way there were tsunamis, hurricanes, and demonic beasts. If I hadn't reached the innate realm, I wouldn't have been able to survive until now. Ting Qingshan was very clear about the dangers of living on the sea for more than 3 months. The tungsten wood vessel might be fine if it encountered some submerged reefs, but other people might not have a vessel as good as Ting Qingshan's. If they encountered some dangerous situations, hurricanes, and so on, Ting Qingshan could go into the sea and grab the iron chain to stabilize the tungsten wood vessel. Many dangerous situations were nothing in front of Ting Qingshan. Ting Qingshan didn't even care about the 9 rhythm treacherous currents, which gave the Bright Moon Island a headache. In his eyes, these weren't dangerous at all. However, Ting Qingshan could come over safely. It didn't mean that others could come over safely. The land of the 9 prefectures was too far away from the Bright Moon Island, who would be bored enough to keep drifting towards the North Sea with the strength of an innate. It seems that there should be other islands around the Bright Moon Island. Ting Qingshan thought to himself. Lord of the Sword Tower. Ting Qingshan opened his mouth and said, "Now that things have been made clear, this vessel is ours. I don't want things to get out of hand between us. Please disembark now. We are about to leave. It's fine if you come to my Bright Moon Island, but if you want to leave, none of the people who came here could leave. the Lord of the Sword Tower said coldly. Ting Qingshan's eyes turned cold. What? Were all the outsiders captured by you? No. The Lord of the Sword Tower shook his head. The several hundred li of sea surrounding the Bright Moon Island is the territory of the 9 rhythm treacherous currents. The sea is turbulent, and the undercurrent under the sea is even more turbulent. No matter what kind of vessel it is, it's easy to float in along with the sea. However, if you want to leave, it's impossible to go against the current. That's not something for you to worry about, Lord. Ting Qingshan said indifferently, Lord, please disembark. Lord. The high-ranking officer whose dantian was destroyed couldn't help but shout. Hundreds of soldiers looked at the Lord of the Sword Tower, who was standing on the railing of the tungsten wood vessel with his white robe fluttering. Outsider. The Lord of the Sword Tower's cold voice sounded. This is my Bright Moon Island, and the Sword Tower is in charge here. You are an outsider. Even if this vessel is yours, you can't hurt the people of my Bright Moon Island. Since you have hurt the people of my Bright Moon Island will definitely punish you severely. Follow me back to the Sword Tower. You want to capture me without asking the right and wrong? Ting Qingshan smiled and glanced at little June at the same time. Little June immediately understood Ting Qingshan's meaning and raised his head to look at the whole gale eagle that was circling in the sky. On my Bright Moon Island, outsiders are not allowed to act presumptuously. The Lord of the Sword Tower's eyes turned cold. If you resist again, don't blame me for being merciless. As the saying goes, help one's own people but not one's own people. Today, Ting Qingshan saw the saying, help one's own people but not reason. Screech, a bird's cry suddenly resounded. The whole gale eagle suddenly swooped down from the sky. The strong airflow caused the Lord of the Sword Tower, who was standing on the railing, to sway slightly before he immediately steadied himself. The entire tungsten wood vessel started to sway. Many soldiers could only lower their heads and bend their waists. At the same time, someone shouted, It's a demonic beast! Demonic beast! Everyone be careful! Terrified shouts resounded. In the history of the Bright Moon Island, it was not the first time that they were attacked by demonic beasts that passed by. Therefore, they were very careful. Evil creature, how dare you! The Lord of the Sword Tower waved his hand and a cold white sword light flew out. Xiao! An earthy yellow shadow shot out from Ting Qingshan's fist. Bang! With a sound, Ting Qingshan's internal supreme force collided with the cold white sword light in midair. The chaotic energy dispersed in all directions in midair. Phew! The whole gale eagle descended to the ground and approached the tungsten wood vessel. Li Jun leaped up and landed on the back of the whole gale eagle. The whole gale eagle immediately ascended. Very soon, it left the sea surface and reached an extremely high altitude. Big Brother Ting, be careful. Li Jun's voice came from above. Li Jun had already discussed with Ting Qingshan. If they were to encounter any danger, the first thing they should do was to let Li Jun sit on the back of the whole gale eagle and hide far away, leaving Ting Qingshan to fight alone. If it was too dangerous, even Ting Qingshan wouldn't be able to withstand it. Ting Qingshan would also get on the back of the whole gale eagle. What? This demonic beast is yours? The Lord of the Sword Tower was shocked. On the Bright Moon Island, no one had ever been able to control demonic beasts. After all, there were no demonic beasts on the Bright Moon Island. That's none of your business. Ting Qingshan glanced at him and said, Tower Lord, please leave my tungsten wood vessel immediately. Otherwise, I can only beat you until you leave. Chapter 3:14. Hearing Ting Qingshan's words, the expression of the Tower Lord, who had always been as cold as ice, changed slightly. His gaze instantly became as sharp as a sword, piercing into Ting Qingshan's body, as if he wanted to cut Ting Qingshan into 1,000 pieces. In the entire Bright Moon Island, no one had ever dared to say to the Tower Lord, "Beat you until you leave. Brat, you're crazy enough." In an instant, the Tower Lord put his index finger and middle finger together, and a cold white sword light emerged from the tip of his finger. The Tower Lord's body instantly dived down. He didn't even draw his sword, but instead, used his sword finger to rapidly point at the space between Ting Qingshan's eyebrows. The sword finger was extremely swift and fierce, and the sword finger faintly emitted waves of cold air. "Ha ha!" Ting Qingshan's laughter suddenly resounded. Boom! A deep and low sound of a collision suddenly resounded. At the same time, the figure of the Lord of the Sword Tower, whose white clothes fluttered in the wind, was sent flying away from the tungsten wood vessel. While in midair, the Lord of the Sword Tower turned around and landed on the beach as if he was floating. However, his gaze was as if he was staring at his prey as he raised his head and looked at the tungsten wood vessel. He understood that this time, he had met his match. The Tower Lord's gaze was blazing. It was too difficult to find a match for an expert. Good sword art! A hearty laughter resounded. A figure dressed in an azure cloak directly soared up from the tungsten wood vessel and landed on the beach. He held a silver long spear in his hand, and his gaze was completely focused on the Tower Lord. The two super experts. After a simple exchange, they both realized each other's astonishing strength. This person actually didn't die. He actually withstood one move from the Tower Lord and still didn't die. Hundreds of soldiers found it hard to believe as they watched this scene in shock. The invincible image of the Tower Lord had long been deeply engraved in everyone's hearts. On the entire Bright Moon Island, the number of people who could withstand one move from the Tower Lord without dying could be counted on one hand. Rumble, a chaotic sound resounded. From the west side of the beach, a large number of soldiers were madly dashing towards this direction. Each and every one of them was running on their two legs. There were a lot of people. At first glance, there was an endless stream of densely packed people emerging from the west side of the beach, from a path among the grass and trees. "There are quite a lot of people," Ting Qingshan said. The Sword Tower's Tower Master observed Ting Qingshan attentively. He wasn't in a hurry to attack. "The army has arrived." The eyes of the hundreds of soldiers on the beach lit up. "Brother Liu!" A clear shout rang out, and the two leading generals immediately cupped their hands towards the heavily injured general whose dantian had been destroyed, and said, "The 3,000 men of the barracks are all here." The general's mansion of the northern Yen town was stationed at the seaside barracks. There were a total of 3,000 men and horses. Apart from the hundreds of people that General Liu had brought with him at the beginning, more than 2,000 people had also arrived. It was only because of the short distance that he was able to arrive so quickly. As for the general's mansion and the army of the Sword Tower, they were still on their way. Tower Master! Only now did the two generals realize that the white-robed man was actually the Tower Master of the Sword Tower. "Greetings, Tower Master." The two generals immediately greeted respectfully. Paying respects to the Pavilion Master. The numerous soldiers who had just arrived also respectfully shouted in unison, their shouts shaking the heavens. Both of you retreat to the side. Be careful of being accidentally injured," the Tower Master said indifferently. The two generals hastily obeyed the order and moved to the side of General Liu, whose dantian had been destroyed. One of the tall generals hastily asked in a low voice, "Brother Liu, who is that green-robed boorish young man? It seems like he can fight with the Tower Master head-on? What's the use of being powerful? We have 3,000 soldiers. We can exhaust him to death with our men," General Liu said while gnashing his teeth. The expressions of the two generals changed slightly. It seemed like General Liu didn't care about the lives of the soldiers. This made them slightly dissatisfied and puzzled. On the beach, Ting Qingshan and the Tower Master faced each other from a distance. The sea breeze blew, and the seawater of the 9 rhythm treacherous currents surged. The surrounding 3,000 soldiers watched this scene in shock and excitement. Even the generals of the general's mansion rarely had such an opportunity to see the Tower Master fight. The Tower Master grabbed the hilt of the sword on his back with his right hand. His 5 fingers were slender and white, like a woman's hand. However, these 5 fingers were very powerful. Clang! The godly sword was unsheathed. The entire godly sword was dark green, and there were faint traces of blood on the blade. A weakling doesn't need me to know his name. However, you have the strength to fight with me. You are a powerhouse. Outsider, tell me your name. The Tower Master looked at Ting Qingshan from a distance. His voice was clear and loud, even suppressing the sound of the surging wave. Haha, the bearded Ting Qingshan laughed even louder. The surrounding 3,000 soldiers felt their ears rumble. What's your name? Tower Master, Huang Fu Yujiang. The Tower Master looked at Ting Qingshan and asked, What's your name? A weakling isn't qualified to know my name. Ting Qingshan smiled. The Tower Master of the Sword Tower, Huang Fu Yujiang, had a cold look in his eyes. His murderous intent was faintly discernible. The dark green godly sword in his hand pointed at the beach. The godly sword in my hand is called Dark Blood. It likes to drink blood. When the sword is unsheathed, it will drink blood. As soon as he finished speaking, Huang Fu Yujiang turned into a blurry white afterimage. Xiao! In the blink of an eye, the afterimage had covered a distance of over 10 zhang. The blurry green light headed straight for Ting Qingshan. Ting Qingshan stood on the beach. Suddenly, his left hand grabbed the spear shaft, while his right hand slid to the end of the spear shaft. It was a very simple movement, like a wheel. His right hand shook and slightly pushed forward. Phew! The tip of the reincarnation spear drew a beautiful arc. The arc faintly had an earthy yellow halo circulating. Bang! A low and deep sound of collision rang out. Bang! 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 Continuous sounds of collisions could be heard. Every time the Tower Lord of the Sword Tower, Huang Fu Yujiang, stabbed with his sword, it would cause the seawater at the side to surge. The swift and fierce ice-cold sword chi shot out one after another, and whenever a soldier accidentally touched it, he or she would be frozen into a stick. Gotcha! His entire body was frozen and cracked. Even his blood was frozen into ice. Retreat further away, quickly! The generals hastily shouted. A large number of soldiers frantically retreated far away, afraid that they would be affected. Clang! The strength of Ting Qingshan's spear was so great that even the reincarnation spear was bent. Subsequently, it rebounded and burst out. The Tower Master of the Sword Tower, Huang Fu Yujiang, was shaken and flew back 7 to 8 zhang before falling. As for Ting Qingshan, he took 3 heavy steps back. Every step he took sank deep into the sand. Even the clothes on his body were covered with frost. He seemed to be in a sorry state. Huang Fu Yujiang seemed to be very carefree. However, Ting Qingshan had a smile on his face. Huang Fu Yujiang, on the other hand, had a solemn expression. Good sword art. Ting Qingshan laughed heartily. Good spear art. Huang Fu Yujiang said in a deep voice. The 3,000 soldiers who were watching from afar were stunned when they saw this scene. What was this? Could it be that the mysterious expert's strength was on par with the Tower Master of the Sword Tower? The hundreds of soldiers who had previously made things difficult for Ting Qingshan felt a chill in their hearts. They were really provoking a super expert who was on par with the Tower Master of the Sword Tower. They were really tired of living. Huang Fu Yujiang. Ting Qingshan looked at his opponent from afar and said, I admit your strength. You are qualified to know my name. Listen carefully. Huang Fu Yujiang raised his eyebrows and looked at Ting Qingshan. The 3,000 soldiers in the distance pricked up their ears. They all wanted to know the name of this super expert who was on par with the Tower Master of the Sword Tower. In the future, they would have the capital to brag to their sons. My name is Ting Qingshan. Ting Qingshan's voice was loud and clear. Ting Qingshan. He is called Ting Qingshan? This Ting Qingshan is really powerful. The 3,000 soldiers immediately started discussing excitedly. They all firmly remembered the name Ting Qingshan in their minds. Ting Qingshan? Huang Fu Yujiang frowned and remembered this name deeply. This was the first time he, Huang Fu Yujiang, returned without success after he had mastered the supreme 9 sword forms of the Bright Moon Sword Codex. Not a single one of the 9 strongest sword forms had injured his opponent. In front of Ting Qingshan's long spear, Huang Fu Yujiang felt like he was facing a tall mountain that he couldn't move. This Huang Fu Yujiang's sword art is really powerful. Ting Qingshan recalled the scene just now and lowered his head to look at the frost on his clothes. Every sword move was terrifyingly sharp. If it wasn't for my powerful transmutation unity law spear art, a few bloody holes would have appeared on my body. This Huang Fu Yujiang is worthy of being the #1 expert of the Bright Moon Island. He is almost the same as the #1 godly general of the god of Heaven Mountain, Boralimu. Ting Qingshan immediately laughed loudly and said, Huang Fu Yujiang, after receiving a few moves of your sword art, you can also try my spear art. The laughter was still echoing. Ting Qingshan suddenly dashed out. A green afterimage flashed, and the reincarnation spear appeared in front of Huang Fu Yujiang like a swimming dragon coming out of the water. Ting Qingshan's right arm bulged out of his clothes. An earthy yellow flowing light permeated his right arm. His right hand that was holding the spear suddenly exerted force. Buzz, the tip of the spear instantly rotated. It was as if it could drill through space. Silver lightning flashed. Whoosh, Huang Fu Yujiang's face was solemn. The deep green dark blood godly sword in his hand moved agilely and unexpectedly blocked the tip of Ting Qingshan's spear. Clang! Ting Qingshan's hands became slightly numb, and he was forced to take a step back. Huang Fu Yujiang also took 2 steps back. The powerful force that burst out caused the sandy beach around Ting Qingshan and Huang Fu Yujiang to be nearly 1 qi deep. This Huang Fu Yujiang is really powerful. He can actually block my toxic dragon drill. Reduce the power and increase the speed. Ting Qingshan's face darkened. The reincarnation spear moved like a flood dragon and stirred again. Since the last time he fought with the divine bird Blue Luan, Ting Qingshan had been thinking about this problem. Although he didn't have a big breakthrough, after reducing the power by 30 to 40%, his speed would still increase by a lot. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The rotating tip of the spear stabbed towards Huang Fu Yujiang again and again. Whoosh, Huang Fu Yujiang was very steady. The dark blood godly sword also moved agilely and swiftly to block. Huang Fu Yujiang was obviously very confident in his defense. Clang, clang, clang. A series of colliding sounds could be heard. Every move of Ting Qingshan's toxic dragon drill was blocked by Huang Fu Yujiang. The strangest thing was, there were a few streams of water on the beach that were swept into Huang Fu Yujiang's sword shadow. The fleeting sword shadow flashed, and the streams of water formed a strange circle. No matter how Ting Qingshan attacked, he couldn't break through the defense of this sword art. It was as terrifying as Ting Qingshan's transmutation unity law spear art. This sword art. As Ting Qingshan watched, an idea suddenly flashed in his mind. He was ecstatic. This sword art contains the water elemental Tao. I have to fight with him for a while. Maybe my water element fist will have a breakthrough. Chapter 3:15. On the beach, the 3,000 soldiers carefully watched the scene from afar. The green and white phantoms fought from the beach to the distant sea surface. The sea of the 9 rhythm treacherous currents was turbulent, but the 2 super experts could fight on the surface of the water. The violent energy continued to spread out in all directions, and a large number of waves and splashes also exploded. This person called Ting Qingshan is actually so powerful. The general with the surname Lu clenched his teeth, and his eyes turned red. Brother Lu, this Ting Qingshan is too powerful. Even the tower master couldn't take him down. You should stop. A tall general at the side consoled. At this moment, clop, clop, clop. One by one, experts with sharp swords on their backs arrived at the beach on mounts that looked like warhorses. Their mounts had 4 thick and powerful hooves, long fur, and 2 curved horns on their head. These were the top mounts of Bright Moon Island horned beasts. The one with the most horned beasts was naturally the Sword Tower. As for the 18 generals' residences, only a few people owned them. Tower Master. Dozens of experts sat on the horned beasts, and looked at the 2 figures on the sea surface in shock. They didn't expect that there was actually someone who could fight with their Tower Master to a draw. The leader of this group of people was an expert. His temples were white, and his face looked like it was carved from stone. There was a green longsword embroidered on the left side of his chest. Greetings, Elder. The 3 generals came over and bowed respectfully. What happened? Who is the person fighting with the Tower Master? The old man shouted anxiously. Elder. The general with the surname Lu immediately bowed respectfully. That person is called Ting Qingshan, and he isn't from Bright Moon Island. He sailed his ship to Bright Moon Island, and was extremely rude and unreasonable. He caused many soldiers to die, and even my martial arts were destroyed by him. When the Tower Master came over, he spoke rudely to the Tower Master and even attacked him. The 2 generals at the side were slightly startled, but they didn't say anything. This person is so arrogant? The old man's face darkened, and he looked at the distant sea. The 2 great experts who were fighting on the sea actually separated. Above the sea, Ting Qingshan and Huangfu Yujiang stood on the sea, and didn't sink. Why did you stop? Ting Qingshan's eyes were burning. Huangfu Yujiang frowned and looked at Ting Qingshan. Ting Qingshan, I can't break your spear technique. But you can't break my sword art. Moreover, I see that you only use that one move. Since neither of us can win, why waste time? Ting Qingshan was speechless. Could he tell his opponent, I'm trying to sense the concept of your sword art and seek a breakthrough in my water element fist? Huangfu Yujiang, what sword art is this? Ting Qingshan asked. A look of reverence appeared on Huangfu Yujiang's face. This is the Bright Moon Sword technique, created by the 3rd-generation patriarch of the Sword Tower. He cultivated diligently by the sea for more than 10 years. After a moment of enlightenment, he created it. Ting Qingshan's heart thumped. Created by the seaside? It's not strange that it contains the water elemental Tao. Ting Qingshan thought to himself. Huangfu Yujiang, Ting Qingshan said, I wonder, can I have a look at the Bright Moon Sword technique? Huangfu Yujiang's facial expression changed as he looked at Ting Qingshan. Of course, I don't want to look at the circulation method of the innate true origin or the various comprehensions. I just want to take a look at the contents of the Bright Moon Sword technique about the defensive sword art you just used. Ting Qingshan smiled and said, In return, I can show you the concept of my defensive spear art. Huangfu Yujiang somewhat understood that the person in front of him should be that kind of ascetic cultivator. He's even willing to show the concept of his ultimate move to others. No wonder he would drift on the sea and cultivate diligently. He's really a madman. Huangfu Yujiang thought to himself. That's the ultimate move of the Sword Tower. It can't be taught to outsiders. Huangfu Yujiang shook his head and said, Although I'm the Tower Lord, I can't go against it. Ting Qingshan, I can't capture you. You should leave. Can't be taught to outsiders? Ting Qingshan glanced at Huangfu Yujiang. Phew. Ting Qingshan walked on the waves of the sea and transformed into a blurry phantom. He dashed on the sea surface for a distance of over 100 zhang, then leaped up and directly landed on the tungsten wood vessel. Little June, let's go! Ting Qingshan shouted loudly, his voice resounding to the 9 heavens. Screech, the whole gale eagle swooped down from the sky. The purple-clothed girl sitting on the eagle's back was like a fairy. The strong air pressure and strong wind caused a large amount of sand on the beach to fly in all directions. Many soldiers at the side could only lower their heads and cover their eyes. Soon after, the demonic beast and the girl landed on the deck of the tungsten wood vessel. Big brother Ting Qingshan, if we continue to fight, the Tower Lord of the Sword Tower will probably run out of true origin. Li Jun looked at Ting Qingshan. Yes, but… Ting Qingshan shook his head and said, he won't be so stupid as to wait for his true origin to run out and then be killed by me. Once his true origin is left with 10 to 20%, Huang Fu Yujiang will probably escape by relying on Qin Gong. In terms of Qin Gong, I am still inferior to him. Ting Qingshan also gasped in admiration. In terms of strength, the number 1 expert of the Bright Moon Island could be ranked in the top 3 of the heavenly ranking in the land of the 9 prefectures. Let's go. Ting Qingshan rowed the long oars. Voila, the tungsten wood vessel rapidly rowed towards the southeast. With the strength of Ting Qingshan's arms, the 2 long oars were able to move swiftly and powerfully. The tungsten wood vessel went against the current and continuously advanced towards the southeast. On the beach, a large number of people watched the tungsten wood vessel leave from afar. Tower Lord. The group of experts led by the old man stood behind Huang Fu Yujiang. Huang Fu Yujiang, who was wearing a loose white cloak and holding a dark green godly sword in his hand, looked at the departing tungsten wood vessel and exclaimed in his heart, why does Ting Qingshan's innate true origin seem to be endless? My innate true origin has been depleted by 70% after the intense battle with me. He guessed that it was about the same. But for such a big ship to go against the current, it would require a lot of strength. His consumption of true essence is also very fast. How could he? Tower Master, the 9 rhythm treacherous currents are swift. It's impossible for the ship to go against the current and rush out of the 9 rhythm treacherous currents, the elder said with a frown. Those 2, yes, even a Golden Dan innate expert would not be able to row a boat away. Huang Fu Yujiang said coldly, the 9 rhythm treacherous currents is a few hundred miles long. If we advance diagonally, it will be more than 1,000 miles. At the fiercest point, there was no way to paddle. They could only dive into the water to drag the boat forward. If they wanted to leave, they would need 2 Golden Dan innate experts to take turns to rest and recover their innate true origin. It's impossible for a single person to leave the 9 rhythm treacherous currents. Bright Moon Island, generation after generation. Regarding the 9 rhythm treacherous currents, it had already been determined that 2 Golden Dan innate experts were needed to leave by boat. The entire Bright Moon Island only had a population of 10 million. Sometimes, the entire island would only have 1 or 2 Golden Dan innate experts. It was easy to imagine how difficult it would be to leave. Ting Qingshan pulled the iron chain and swiftly swam on the turbulent sea. The tungsten wood vessel was also being pulled by him, continuously advancing towards the southeast direction. It's almost impossible to row the boat out. Ting Qingshan pulled the iron chain and thought to himself, the 9 rhythm treacherous currents is the fiercest point of every rhythm. The current is extremely fast. In order for the tungsten wood vessel to move forward, the oars must reach the same level as my reincarnation spear. Only then would it be able to withstand the speed and explosive force. Using star-patterned steel to make a giant long oar? Too extravagant. It's better to drag the boat in the water. It's much simpler. Ting Qingshan swam very fast in the water. After a long time, when the tungsten wood vessel advanced to the flat area of the second rhythm and discovered a shallow area, Ting Qingshan's dual flames covered the blazing innate true origin, causing the iron chain to soften. Soon after, he twisted the iron chain into a simple iron anchor and hooked it onto a rock under the sea. Ka! The tungsten wood vessel was fixed in place. Ting Qingshan leaped from the sea and landed on the deck. Big brother Ting, why did you stop? Li Jun was slightly puzzled. The beach is several dozen li away from here. Ting Qingshan looked towards the north and said, even if someone is on the Bright Moon Island, it's impossible for them to see the tungsten wood vessel several dozen li away. Yes. Li Jun nodded. If it was several li away, an inner strength expert would still be able to see the tungsten wood vessel with its size. However, it was several dozen li away, so it was impossible to see it. Little Jun, Ting Qingshan smiled as he looked at Li Jun. Do you remember what Shangguan Quan said before? The entire Bright Moon Island has a forbidden area. Of course I remember. Li Jun nodded and said, the large mountain in the southeast is the forbidden area, and the large mountain in the northeast is where the sword tower is located. That Shangguan Quan also said, that only the most extraordinary experts of the sword tower can occasionally enter the forbidden area. Big brother Ting, what do you think this is for? Ting Qingshan smiled slightly and said, Little Jun, you said that only the most extraordinary experts can occasionally enter the forbidden area. Can you guess what's in the forbidden area? That goes without saying. Only experts can occasionally enter, so it's very likely that there's some powerful cultivation technique hidden there. Or some extraordinary treasure. Li Jun said. Yes. Ting Qingshan smiled and looked towards the north. Little Jun, tell Little Gray to carry us on its back and fly towards the Bright Moon Island. Let's go take a look at the forbidden area. Go to the forbidden area? Although Li Jun was surprised by Ting Qingshan's decision, she was also slightly curious. Immediately, Li Jun talked to the whole Gale Eagle, who was at the side, and the whole Gale Eagle cried out. Big brother Ting, it even took the opportunity to ask for the iron leaf fruit. Li Jun said with a smile. Just give it to eat. Oh, there's still an iron leaf fruit in my bag, although a small piece has been dug out. Ting Qingshan immediately went into the cabin and took out a small piece of the iron leaf fruit and threw it at the whole Gale Eagle. The whole Gale Eagle excitedly raised its head and took a bite. Cracking sounds could be heard as it swallowed the fruit into its stomach. The whole Gale Eagle immediately spread its wings happily and hovered 2 zhang above the tungsten wood vessel. Whoosh! Whoosh! Ting Qingshan held the reincarnation spear and leaped onto the back of the whole Gale Eagle at the same time as Li Jun. The whole Gale Eagle's body was not as big as the fierce Gale Divine Eagle, so Ting Qingshan and Li Jun could only snuggle together. Screech! The whole Gale Eagle cried out happily and soared into the sky. Within the layer of clouds, the whole Gale Eagle was flying. Ting Qingshan and Li Jun were on the whole Gale Eagle's back. Through the blurry clouds, Ting Qingshan looked down. The 2 towering mountain peaks were very conspicuous. Huang Fu Yujiang, if you don't show it to me, do you think I won't be able to see it? Ting Qingshan's gaze fell upon the towering mountain peak in the southeast direction. Little Gray, go down. Ting Qingshan lightly patted the whole Gale Eagle's feathers and pointed towards the towering mountain peak in the southeast direction. The whole Gale Eagle obediently nodded its head. Phew! It immediately dived down towards the mountain peak in the forbidden area. Chapter 3:16. The mountain peak of the forbidden area was 10,000 zhang high. The top of the mountain was covered with all kinds of weeds and vines. It was obvious that no one had been here for a long time. Who? A gray figure descended from the sky. It was the whole Gale Eagle that was carrying Ting Qingshan, and Li Jun had also informed the whole Gale Eagle that they had secretly entered the forbidden area. Therefore, it was also very vigilant. Ting Qingshan and Li Jun jumped off the eagle's back. Big brother Ting, there are no traces of footsteps in the surroundings. No one should have been here. Li Jun said with a frown. The entire mountain is a forbidden area. Ting Qingshan glanced at the surroundings and said in a low voice, However, it's impossible for the entire mountain to hide the sword art manuals or treasures. It should be somewhere in the mountains. It was impossible for the sword tower to imagine that someone could descend from the sky. Therefore, there is no one guarding the peak. Now, let's go down carefully. You and the whole Gale Eagle follow behind me for Tenjong. Remember, don't make any noise, Ting Qingshan said in a low voice. Yes. Li Jun nodded. At the same time, she whispered to the whole Gale Eagle at the side in the beast language. The whole Gale Eagle was a Xian Tian level demonic beast. It was not difficult for it to not make any sound. Let's go, Ting Qingshan said in a low voice. Immediately, Ting Qingshan walked in front, and Li Jun and the whole Gale Eagle followed Tenjong behind. The whole Gale Eagle and Ting Qingshan were agile in their movements, and Li Jun was also at the peak of internal strength. She was as agile as a fairy in the wild forest. Forbidden area, halfway up the mountain. On a mountain road that had been trampled by people all year round, a young man in a green robe was walking on the mountain road with a basket in each hand. There were beads of sweat on his forehead as he muttered, Senior brother and the others all think that I'm easy to bully, so they ask me to deliver food every day. It was a long way up and down the mountain. Moreover, the 4 old monsters guarding the forbidden area were also hot-tempered. I heard that a junior brother was killed by these 4 old monsters last year. It wasn't a good thing to deliver food to the guardian elder of the forbidden area. On the Bright Moon Island, the 18 generals' residences had been fighting against each other for many years. As for the sword tower, it was superior because it had no enemies. That was why the infighting was fierce. There were many clans and factions in the sword tower, and there were also some people from the 18 generals' residences. This caused the power struggle in the sword tower to be more serious, and these new disciples had the lowest status. We're here. The green-robed youth immediately saw a stone tablet on the mountain path ahead. On the stone tablet were 2 large blood-red words, Forbidden Area. The green-robed youth stood in front of the stone tablet and did not dare to take a step forward. He shouted loudly, Elder! And a stooped old man with silvery white brows walked out from the entrance of the Forbidden Area's abode with a gloomy gaze. After staying in the Forbidden Area for so many years, the guardian elder's character had become eccentric. Give me the food. Yes. The azure-robed youth immediately handed it over. The hunchbacked old man took the 2 baskets and casually flipped through them. He sniffed and snorted. Little guy, bring 2 more bottles of wine tomorrow. Yes. The green-robed youth immediately responded. The guardian elders had all reached the peak of the post-liminary realm. Normally, they would be fine even if they didn't eat or drink for 3 to 5 days. While they were on guard duty, it was enough for them to eat and drink well every day. Moreover, while they were guarding the forbidden area, it was a good opportunity for these guardian elders to cultivate peacefully. Usually, the elders who were nearing the end of their lifespan would guard the abode for a few years. If they could reach the innate realm, they would live for another 50 years. If they failed, they would die. Under such torture, it was not strange for some elders to become eccentric. Phew! Fortunately, it's not that one-eyed elder. The green-robed youth secretly heaved a sigh of relief and went down the mountain along the mountain path. The hunchbacked old man carried the 2 baskets and walked into the abode. Neither of them realized that a pair of eyes was watching them from the vines a few dozen zhang away. After the green-robed youth left, that figure appeared at the entrance of the abode. This is the forbidden area of the high mountain. The sword tower is probably at the foot of the mountain, and the mountain path is heavily guarded. But there is no one on the way down from the mountain. Ting Qingshan looked at the dark cave abode and thought to himself, there are obviously experts guarding the forbidden area's abode. At this time, Li Jun and the whole Gale Eagle cautiously came to Ting Qingshan's side. Little Jun, I will go in first. You can go after me, Ting Qingshan said in a low voice. Okay. Li Jun only nodded. Immediately, Ting Qingshan held the reincarnation spear in his hand and carefully walked into the abode. The inside of the abode was dark, but the cave was very square. It was obvious that it had been artificially carved. Faint voices could be heard from inside. "Old vulture, come and eat. If you don't come, there will be no more." Fourth brother, why do I feel that the 16th and 17th sword of the 18 nightmare swords are so awkward? An aged voice entered Ting Qingshan's ears. A smile appeared on the corner of Ting Qingshan's mouth. He was familiar with the spacious abode. After a turn, he walked along a passageway. Walking in the passageway, Ting Qingshan already saw the figures of the elders who were gathered together and eating. Phew! Phew! Ting Qingshan's figure flashed and appeared in the spacious house in the belly of the mountain. The 4 elders who were eating were shocked to see this sudden guest. "Who are you?" One of the tall and strong elders put down his bowl and chopsticks and shouted, "How dare you trespass into the forbidden area?" In Bright Moon Island, the Sword Tower dominated. After generations, the Sword Tower was used to it. They were not vigilant against external enemies. Because other than the occasional sea demonic beasts, they had no external enemies. "Fourth brother, why are you talking nonsense with him?" one of the one-eyed elders said coldly. At the same time, he touched his waist and a flexible curved silver light shone. Like a silver snake, it pierced between Ting Qingshan's eyebrows. The other 3 guardian elders also grabbed their weapons, in case the one-eyed elder couldn't deal with his opponent. The Sword Tower had a strict order. Those who trespass into the forbidden area will be killed without mercy. Ting Qingshan's face was calm as his right hand moved slightly. Phew! 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 The reincarnation spear instantly split into 4. 4 silver lightning bolts pierced through the throats of the 4 guardian elders at the same time. The 4 guardian elders covered their throats with their eyes wide open. Blood gushed out from the bloody holes. The eyes of the 4 guardian elders were filled with fear and horror. They couldn't believe that they, the 4 guardian elders, couldn't even shout for help in front of their opponent. Too fast. The 4 guardian elders' corpses fell down powerlessly. Some fell to the ground, some knocked against the wooden table, and knocked over the bowls and chopstick. Pa! Hua! The sound of bowls shattering and the sound of wine spilling onto the ground resounded. The entire house was filled with the strong smell of wine. The smell of wine also contained a strong smell of blood. Phew! The whole Gale Eagle and Li Jun followed the passage and arrived here. As soon as she entered the house, Li Jun saw the 4 elders lying on the ground. Their eyes were still wide open, and they had died with grievances. "There's no one left in this forbidden area," Ting Qingshan said calmly. "Little Jun, let's search along the 2 ends and see if there are any treasures." Even the innate experts guarding the so-called forbidden area would die in front of Ting Qingshan, let alone these 4 guardian elders. Even the number 1 expert of the Bright Moon Island, Huangfu Yujiang, would be exhausted by Ting Qingshan. Ting Qingshan would also exhaust his true origin, and he could only escape. "Okay." Li Jun nodded. Immediately, Ting Qingshan and Li Jun searched the secret rooms at the side. These secret rooms all had straw mats and quilt. In one of the secret rooms, Ting Qingshan looked at the stone carvings of sword moves on the wall. Looking at the stone carvings, some of them are more than 100 years old, and some of them are newly carved. Ting Qingshan nodded to himself. Generation after generation of sword arts, carving their thoughts on the stone walls. Countless experts have accumulated this knowledge. Everyone on the Bright Moon Island practices sword art. No wonder the Tower Lord's sword art is so powerful. In terms of sword techniques, no sect in the land of the 9 prefectures had a better foundation than the Sword Tower. There were many secret rooms in the belly of the mountain. Big Brother Ting, Big Brother Ting. Ting Qingshan had only been searching for a while when Li Jun came. Ting Qingshan looked at her. "Big Brother Ting, follow me." Li Jun said hastily, I found a place. Ting Qingshan curiously followed Li Jun and advanced along the winding mountain path. It must be said that the sword tower had dug out half of the mountain because the mountain path was really long. Big brother Ting, there's a very spacious hall in front. Li Jun led Ting Qingshan for about 100 zhang and pointed to the front. The whole Gale Eagle was in the hall. Ting Qingshan also stepped into the spacious hall. He saw that there were countless sword art carvings on the stone walls of the hall. 18 Flowing Wind Swordsmanship. Heavenly Thunder Sword Art. Slithering Snake Sword. Ting Qingshan looked at the various exquisite sword arts. These sword arts all contained their own concept. Why isn't there the Bright Moon Sword Codex that Huang Fuyujiang mentioned? This caused Ting Qingshan to frown. That's right. That's the most powerful technique of the sword tower. The elite disciples wouldn't easily see it. Ting Qingshan shook his head, feeling slightly regretful. Although those exquisite sword arts were powerful, to Ting Qingshan, who already stood at the doorstep of Tao, they could at most broaden his horizons and were not very useful. Suddenly, Ting Qingshan's gaze stopped at a side door beside the hall. A few lines of densely packed words were carved on the mountain wall beside the door. Anyone who enters the forbidden area and reaches the innate realm can go to the celestial jade annulus. This was left behind by the benefactor of the first martial ancestor of the Sword Tower, Senior Li. The third martial ancestor once studied the celestial jade annulus and comprehended the Bright Moon Sword Codex. If you have not reached the innate realm, you must not look at the celestial jade annulus. It is not beneficial, but harmful. This line of words caused Ting Qingshan to be extremely surprised. Big brother Ting, what is this celestial jade annulus? It actually says that if you have not reached the innate realm, it will be harmful if you look at it? I have to believe it. Ting Qingshan said in a low voice, Little June, wait outside first. With this, Ting Qingshan walked through the side door and went inside. After just a few zhang, Ting Qingshan entered a spacious, naturally formed cave. On one of the mountain walls of the cave, there was a faint azure glow circulating. The 4 lines of words were written in a flamboyant style, causing Ting Qingshan to hold his breath. The rainbows are the clothes, the winds are the horses, the monarchs of the clouds come down one after another. The tigers beat the zither, the luans return to their chariots, the immortals line up like hemp. Chapter 317. Ting Qingshan could almost instantly feel the artistic conception contained in the 4 lines of vigorous and powerful poems on the jade mountain wall, which were flowing with azure light. Once he touched upon the artistic conception, boom! Like a flood bursting through a dam, the 4 lines of 30 words contained an intense and terrifying artistic conception that was like a monstrous flood, instantly drowning Ting Qingshan. Although Ting Qingshan's spirit was powerful at this moment, he was completely immersed in the artistic conception of the 4 lines of poems. Ting Qingshan's eyes saw dozens of indistinct cyan figures brandishing their swords. The sword arts were ethereal, as if they were following the trajectory of the heavens and earth. However, it made Ting Qingshan feel that it was like a carpenter's axe art. It was simple and nothing special. At this moment, Ting Qingshan's surroundings were filled with green figures, and they were all practicing various kinds of sword arts. Although it was called sword art, it was more like a sword dance. If someone came to this natural cave, they would see that Ting Qingshan was holding the reincarnation spear and staring at the mountain wall. He just stared, motionlessly for a whole hour. Clang! A crisp sound rang out. Li Jun, who was in the passageway, was so shocked that she hastily took a few steps inside. She immediately saw the reincarnation spear fall to the ground and roll to the side of the mountain wall before stopping. As for Ting Qingshan, His right index finger and middle finger formed the shape of a sword, and each move he made seemed to be practicing some kind of unfathomable sword art. Ting Qingshan's figure flashed as he practiced the sword with his fingers. The moves were extremely swift and fierce. Whoosh! Because the moves were too swift and fierce, although Ting Qingshan didn't use the innate true origin, waves of powerful qi still shot out in all directions. Clang! Clang! The powerful qi struck the jade annulus with the 4 lines of words, emitting a crisp sound. However, the jade annulus wasn't damaged at all. Pooh! The mountain rocks beside Li Jun were shattered by the powerful qi, and some crushed stones rolled down. When did Big Brother Ting's sword art become so powerful? Li Jun was astonished. Could it be related to the celestial jade annulus? Although Li Jun thought so, she didn't dare to look at the celestial jade annulus. Well, it's not a bad thing to have one more skill. Li Jun looked at Ting Qingshan's moving figure in the cave. I'll wait a little longer. This wait took a long time. The sun rose from the center of the mountain until the sky turned dark. Even the cave was pitch black. However, as the strength qi crisscrossed, the sounds of it colliding with the mountain walls became more and more concentrated. Late at night, Li Jun had long since hidden in the depths of the mountain path, fearing that she would be accidentally injured by Ting Qingshan. In the darkness, Li Jun's small face also had a trace of blood. This was a wound left behind when she was careless and a flying stone brushed past her face. She continued to stare at the direction of the cave. Big Brother Ting's sword art is getting stronger and stronger. Just the strength of the qi force is continuously increasing. Li Jun admired Ting Qingshan even more. Suddenly, something's wrong. A deep and furious roar suddenly came from the cave. Big Brother Ting! Li Jun was shocked and hastily ran towards the cave. Although the sky was dark, the jade annulus emitted a green halo, which was enough for an inner strength expert to see everything in the cave clearly. Big Brother Ting, what's wrong with you? Li Jun was slightly shocked and angry. At this moment, Ting Qingshan clenched his teeth. There was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth, and his face was covered in sweat. He looked like a crazy beast. I'm fine. Ting Qingshan squeezed out a few words from between his teeth. Big Brother Ting. Li Jun was even more worried. With his face covered in sweat, Ting Qingshan stared at the jade annulus like a crazy wild wolf. No matter how excellent and powerful your sword art is, this is not the path I want to walk. This is not what I want, even if you can help me reach the emptiness realm. I don't want it either. Ting Qingshan's gaze was unprecedentedly firm. Outsiders didn't know what had happened in the past 10 to 12 hours. Big Brother Ting, what happened? Li Jun hugged Ting Qingshan's arm and asked nervously. Ting Qingshan turned his head and looked at Li Jun. He smiled and said, "It's okay. This is actually a good thing for me." A good thing? Li Jun couldn't believe that Ting Qingshan's previous behavior was a good thing. There are 4 lines of poetry on the celestial jade annulus. Ting Qingshan explained. According to my estimation, this quatrain should have been written by an extremely powerful expert. It contains the concept of this expert's sword art. This is not a sword art, but the pure Tao of sword that this expert comprehended. This is his Tao of sword. In front of his Tao of sword, my previous comprehension is insignificant. I was completely immersed in his concept and his Tao of sword. Ting Qingshan's eyes shone as he said, I have already touched the edge of Tao. Therefore, I was able to gradually comprehend the concept contained in this poem. If I cultivate here, I believe that in 3 to 5 years, I will definitely be able to step into the emptiness realm and become an emptiness realm expert. 3 to 5 years? Li Jun inhaled a breath of cold air. Ting Qingshan was only 18 years old. 3 to 5 years? An emptiness realm expert in his 20s? It was unbelievable. Big Brother Ting, this is a good thing. You can cultivate here. Or we can take this celestial jade annulus with us, Li Jun said hastily. She didn't care that the celestial jade annulus was a treasure of the Sword Tower. No. Ting Qingshan shook his head and said, with my understanding of Tao, I can indeed reach the emptiness realm after comprehending the celestial jade annulus for a few years. However, the emptiness realm is an emptiness realm that uses a sword. It doesn't use a spear. Moreover, the Tao contained in the celestial jade annulus is the Tao that he comprehended. I am only following the path that he walked. I have my own path. My weapon is the spear. It will always be the spear. Ting Qingshan's heart was as firm as a rock. Ting Qingshan was able to create the earth element fist and the water element fist. However, creating and learning other people's Tao were two different concepts. An expert who could create his own Tao. An expert who had a deeper understanding of Tao. If it was someone else, even if their spirit was strong enough to draw out the terrifying concept contained in the celestial jade annulus, they would not be able to withstand the concept. However, they simply couldn't withstand that intent, or rather, they couldn't comprehend it at all. Ting Qingshan could even comprehend a small part of the traceless Tao of the heavens and earth. However, the concept of the sword art was right in front of him, making it much easier to comprehend. If Ting Qingshan really concentrated on cultivating for a few years, he would be able to break through the barrier and reach the emptiness realm within a few years. It would definitely not be difficult. However, I want to create a path that is truly suitable for the internal martial arts. I want to create a path that belongs to the spear art. A path that belongs to me, Ting Qingshan. Ting Qingshan lowered his head and picked up the reincarnation spear that he had let go of. When Ting Qingshan lowered his head, he saw a line of words on the celestial jade annulus. I, Li Taibai, broke through the emptiness realm with one sword on the bright moon island. I left my sword song here for the fated one. When Ting Qingshan saw this line of words, his mind exploded. Li Taibai? Ting Qingshan was extremely shocked. Poetic sword god Li Taibai? One of the four omnipotent experts, Li Taibai. Ting Qingshan was completely stunned. He originally thought that the 4 lines of words were left by an emptiness realm expert or an insightful emptiness realm expert. A thought flashed through his mind. Could it be left behind by an omnipotent expert? However, Ting Qingshan didn't dare to think too much and eliminated that thought. Big brother Ting, what's wrong? Li Jun asked in surprise. She still didn't dare to look at the words on the celestial jade annulus. Look here. Ting Qingshan pointed at the line of words. Ting Qingshan knew that the 4 lines of the poem should have contained Li Taibai's Tao of Sword. Therefore, it also contained Li Taibai's power of the world. After so many years, an ordinary mountain wall had become a jade mountain wall. This was the wonder of the power of the world. This was something only the omnipotent experts possessed. I can't look at it. Li Jun was slightly hesitant. Look here, it's fine. You can't look at the 4 lines of words for now. If you trigger the sword intent contained within, your mind won't be able to withstand it. It will cause great harm to your spirit. You might not be able to reach the innate realm in your entire life. Ting Qingshan said. Li Jun nodded and looked in the direction that Ting Qingshan pointed. This is... Li Jun looked and was stunned. Li Taibai. When Li Jun saw the 3 words, she also didn't dare to believe it. Emperor Yu, Heavenly Emperor Ing Zheng of the Qin Mountains, Poetic Sword God Li Taibai, and Martial Ancestor Shiga. These 4 omnipotent experts were the 4 people who stood at the peak of the world of the 9 prefectures for countless years. These 4 omnipotent experts were all omnipotent experts of different eras. However, without exception, they had all reached the omnipotent realm. This poem was left behind by Senior Poetic Sword God. Ting Qingshan exclaimed, one of the legendary 4 great divine codices, Green Lotus Sword Song, is probably a bit more complicated than these 4 lines of words. It contains more of the process of postliminary and innate realm cultivation. However, Senior Poetic Sword God's Tao of Sword is contained in this poem. To be more precise, it's a sword song. Ting Qingshan looked at the line of words. Rainbows are the clothes, the wind is the horse, the lords of the clouds come down one after another. The tiger beats the zither, the luan returns to the chariot, the immortals line up like hemp. Ting Qingshan was filled with admiration. In the past, Li Taibai, who had reached the insightful emptiness realm, flew with the wind and wandered the boundless world. He got to know some residents of the Bright Moon Island and finally comprehended and broke through, reaching the omnipotent realm. He also left behind some simple cultivation methods for the residents of the Bright Moon Island. The residents of the Bright Moon Island cultivated according to their cultivation method. In addition, the third martial ancestor comprehended the Bright Moon Sword Codex from the 4 lines of words on the celestial jade annulus and reached the emptiness realm. At this moment, Ting Qingshan discovered that on the other side of the cave, there were some rocks blocking the cave. Could it be that there's another passage? Ting Qingshan walked over, his legs turning into a blur as he kicked the passage. A series of rumbling sounds rang out and a large number of rocks were sent flying. It revealed a platform outside the passageway. Outside the platform was a bottomless cliff. So it's here. Ting Qingshan walked out of the cave and arrived at the edge of the platform. Li Jun was also standing beside him. Cold wind blew past. In front of Ting Qingshan and the others was a bottomless cliff. Ting Qingshan raised his head and looked around. He could even vaguely see the edge of another mountain peak. In the past, the poetic sword god must have flown here from a high altitude and entered this cave from the platform on the cliff halfway up the mountain. He comprehended the pinnacle of the Tao of Sword in this insightful emptiness realm. Ting Qingshan vaguely saw the edge of the other mountain peak. When he thought of the fact that the other mountain peak was as tall as the one in the forbidden area and that the adjacent mountain walls were very steep, he couldn't help but think, when the poetic sword god comprehended the Tao of Sword, could he have slashed his sword from a high altitude and split the mountain into 2? That's why there are these 2 mountains? Chapter 3:18. On the slightly protruding platform of the cliff, Ting Qingshan and Li Jun stood side by side. The piercingly cold mountain wind blew past. Li Jun's body swayed and she couldn't help but take a step back. Her face was slightly pale. "Ha ha!" Ting Qingshan turned to look at Li Jun and said with a smile, "Little Jun, you almost fell down just now. It's so high. If he fell, no one would save him. He would definitely lose his life." Li Jun was slightly afraid as she said, "Big brother Ting, don't stand at the edge." Although Li Jun had interacted with Ting Qingshan for a long time, she did not know that the experts of the internal martial arts could save their lives even if they jumped off a cliff. "Me?" Ting Qingshan smiled. "Let's go back to the cave." With the reincarnation spear in his hand, Ting Qingshan returned to the natural cave. He raised his head and looked at the mountain wall that had already turned into an azure jade. "Big brother Ting, when are we leaving?" Li Jun asked. "Leave?" Ting Qingshan shook his head. "We have nothing to do here, why don't we leave?" Li Jun was slightly surprised. "Big brother Ting, didn't you say that the concept contained within the celestial jade annulus is the concept of the poetic sword god, Li Taibai's sword Tao? Didn't you not want to learn his sword Tao? Why are you still here?" Ting Qingshan raised his head and looked at the 4 lines of flamboyant calligraphy calmly. "Little Jun, I told you before that I'm going to the northern sea continent to find the godly Axe Mountain and watch Emperor use 36 splitting mountain forms. The 36 splitting mountain forms is a very powerful axe art. I won't learn axe arts and won't walk the same path as Emperor Yu. Why did I go even though I knew It's because all techniques are interlinked. Whether it was the Tao of calligraphy, the Tao of painting, or the Tao of zither, when one reached the pinnacle, everything would become the heavenly Tao. Therefore, I want to observe the 36 splitting mountain forms. I hope to learn from the 36 splitting mountain forms and gain some enlightenment. Ting Qingshan's eyes shone brightly in the dark cave. Although the 4 lines of poetic sword god Li Taibai's Green Lotus Sword Song are about the Tao of the sword, but at the same time it can be used as a reference. With heaven and earth as the teacher, one can comprehend the heavenly Tao. However, the difficulty is extremely high. And the 4 lines of words on the celestial jade annulus all contain the sword Tao concept of Senior Li Taibai. Emperor, you also told me that if I use the splitting mountain axe, I can clearly feel the 36 splitting mountain forms, and it will be easier for me to learn from them. Ting Qingshan smiled as he said, if I learn from them, I will be able to comprehend the heavenly Tao faster. So that's how it is. Li Jun started to understand. The heavenly Tao was indescribable. There was no way to describe it with words. What was needed was comprehension. The comprehension of these 4 supreme experts was extremely precious. No wonder the Sword Tower's swordsmanship has reached such a high level. Ting Qingshan exclaimed in admiration, this Senior Li is also very powerful. At least, his Tao of calligraphy is extremely high. Just these 4 lines of words contain his sword Tao. For example, Patriarch Shiga of the Buddhist sect. If you asked Patriarch Shiga to use poetry and calligraphy, and infuse the Tao that he had comprehended into it, it would be difficult for him. Asking Ting Qingshan to use calligraphy to infuse the Tao was also difficult. After all, he didn't understand calligraphy. Big brother Ting, did you comprehend anything? Li Jun asked expectantly. Senior Li's sword Tao is unfathomable. A smile appeared on Ting Qingshan's face as he said, however, according to what I felt earlier, Senior Li's sword Tao should have started with the water element. The legendary poetic sword god Li Taibai loved wine the most. He also liked to live in a place with water. Entering the Tao with the water element? Li Jun said in surprise. Yes. Firstly, it's my feeling. Secondly, Ting Qingshan smiled as he said, when I fought with the Tower Lord of the Sword Tower, Huangfu Yujiang, his bright moon sword codex contained the water element. The softness of water can resist all things, but the hardness of water can destroy everything. The 3rd generation martial ancestor of the Sword Tower is the same as me. He should have comprehended the initial stage of Senior Li's sword Tao. He created the Bright Moon Sword Codex. One of the 4 supreme experts, Li Taibai's sword Tao, at its initial stage, was the water element. Previously, I was involuntarily influenced by his concept and learned his sword art. Ting Qingshan smiled as he shook his head. If I let myself be, my Tao would be completely influenced. I'm afraid that I would never be able to improve my spear Tao. The consequences would be unimaginable. Fortunately, at the crucial moment, I bit the tip of my tongue and broke free from its influence. Li Jun was secretly shocked when she heard this. Ting Qingshan seemed to be very relaxed when he spoke. However, Li Jun couldn't forget the scene where Ting Qingshan's face was covered in sweat and the corner of his mouth was bleeding. Obviously, it was very difficult to break free from its influence. However, after going through this ordeal, my state of mind has become more resolute. Moreover, the biggest benefit is that I have a deeper understanding of the water element. Ting Qingshan smiled as he said, Little June, from today onwards, I plan to meditate here for a long time to comprehend Senior Li's sword art. At the same time, I want to improve my water element fist. Stay here for a long time? Li Jun was shocked. Yes, I want to meditate and cultivate in seclusion. Ting Qingshan nodded. Ting Qingshan knew very well that the celestial jade annulus, one of the 4 omnipotent experts, was a great opportunity for him. This time, cultivating on the Bright Moon Island would be much more effective than cultivating in the land of the 9 prefectures. Of course, in the future, he would go to the northern sea continent and cultivate on the godly Axe Mountain. With the help of the splitting mountain axe, Ting Qingshan's cultivation would be even better. However, Emperor Yu and Li Taibai's Tao were probably different. Ting Qingshan cultivated the water element fist. Using Li Taibai's Tao of Sword as a reference was naturally the wisest choice. Then, Li Jun hastily said, "The people of the Sword Tower will probably send food here tomorrow. If the 4 elders don't appear, the people of the Sword Tower will definitely be suspicious. They might even send a large number of experts. We will be here, don't worry." Ting Qingshan smiled as he said, "With me here, even if 2 Huangfu Yujiangs came, I would still make him leave in a sorry state." Little June, Ting Qingshan looked at Li Jun and said, "From tomorrow onwards, let the whole Gale Eagle bring you to the Tungstenwood vessel or other places to eat. As for me, during my cultivation, I will only eat once every 10 days to half a month." When Li Jun heard this, she nodded and said, "Big brother Ting, eating is a small matter. You don't have to worry." At the same time, Li Jun looked at Ting Qingshan. The long and arduous cultivation caused Ting Qingshan's long hair to drape over his shoulders and his face to be covered with stubble. He was completely different from the handsome young man she met for the first time. Li Jun sighed inwardly. From the famous handsome young man, Ting Qingshan grew step by step. Now, in the land of the 9 prefectures, no one under the emptiness realm could defeat Ting Qingshan. He was still in closed-door cultivation. Maybe in a few years, Big Brother Ting will become an emptiness realm expert, an existence like the God of Heaven. He will become one of the strongest experts in the land of the 9 prefectures. Li Jun was filled with anticipation. "Little Jun, I have one more thing to ask of you," Ting Qingshan said hastily. Li Jun stared at Ting Qingshan. "I reckon that the people of the Sword Tower will come tomorrow. At that time, it will create a storm. After this matter is settled, I will be in closed-door cultivation. I hope that you can interrupt me every noon if I am still immersed in Senior Li's Tao of the Sword. The method is very simple. Just throw a rock at me." Ting Qingshan instructed, just in case. "Yes." Li Jun nodded. Ting Qingshan smiled and said, "Of course, if nothing unexpected happens, I will stop before noon every day." Ting Qingshan knew very well that he shouldn't immerse himself too deeply in the Tao of the Sword. Only when his own Tao improved, would he be able to comprehend the Tao of the Sword at a deeper level without being affected. "Now I want to meditate." After Ting Qingshan finished speaking, he sat down cross-legged and placed the reincarnation spear on his knees to meditate. In his mind, part of the Tao of the Sword that he had comprehended previously appeared. He started to separate the concept of the water element and integrate it into his water element fist. The next day, the sun rose until noon. Everything was as Ting Qingshan had expected. The youth who delivered the food shouted at the entrance of the forbidden abode for a long time, but the 4 guardian elders did not appear. He immediately guessed that something big had happened. He was so scared that he immediately went to report. The forbidden abode had not had a big incident for a long time. There was no news of the 4 guardian elders. It was very likely that they were dead. This shocked the higher-ups of the Sword Tower. The forbidden abode was not important, but it wasn't. After all, the sword art carvings did not have any mental cultivation method or mnemonic chant. The most important sword art was not there. It was very important. The celestial jade annulus was something the entire Sword Tower needed. With the celestial jade annulus, the Sword Tower could only prosper. The sun hung high in the sky. It was very comfortable to bask in the cold sun. However, none of the experts of the Sword Tower felt comfortable. Russell, on the winding mountain path of the forbidden area, a large number of Sword Tower's powerhouses were rapidly rushing towards the Forbidden Area's abode. At the forefront of this group of people was the Sword Tower's master, Huang Fu Yujiang. Beside him was a white-haired old man. This old man was the previous lord of the Sword Tower. He was also Huang Fu Yujiang's teacher, Tian Hong. When Huang Fu Yujiang's strength surpassed his teacher, Tian Hong automatically abdicated, and Huang Fu Yujiang became the new lord of the Sword Tower. The rule of the Sword Tower was that the strongest person would be the lord. For thousands of years, no one has ever entered the forbidden abode. Tianhong had a worried look on his face. He said as he hurried along, "Ordinary inner force experts can't barge in at all in this forbidden cave abode. As for innate experts, there are only 6 or 7 innate experts in the entire Bright Moon Island. They are all members of the Sword Tower. If they want to view the celestial jade annulus, they can enter directly. There is no need to barge in and kill people. This. They didn't understand who would enter the celestial jade annulus. What I'm most worried about now is that the person who entered the forbidden abode will destroy the celestial jade annulus." Huang Fu Yujiang's face was ashen. As he spoke, the group of people rushed to the entrance of the forbidden abode. The smell of blood. Huang Fu Yujiang and his teacher, Tian Hong, were the only 2 Golden Dan innate experts in the entire Sword Tower. They discovered the house where the 4 guardian elders died at the same time. They must have been killed at the same time. They didn't even have time to tell the people outside. Tian Hong frowned. "It's a spear. The weapon that killed them was a spear." Huang Fu Yujiang saw the bloody holes on the necks of the 4 great elders. The blood had long dried up. "It's really him." Huang Fu Yujiang had already guessed the terrifying opponent who used a spear. "Lord!" The other experts of the Sword Tower also rushed in. "Celestial Jade Annulus." Huang Fu Yujiang's expression changed slightly. Phew! Huang Fu Yujiang and Tian Hong dashed towards the place where the celestial jade annulus was. Huang Fu Yujiang and Tian Hong couldn't help but stop in the great hall that was inscribed with a large number of sword arts. A large group of people behind them also stood at the side. Their gazes fell on the person who had been in the great hall for a long time. An azure long robe, a face full of beard stubble, and a shiny silver spear. Ting Qingshan. Huang Fu Yujiang's gaze was as sharp as a sword as he squeezed out these 3 words from between his teeth. P.S. This is the first chapter, get some monthly vote. Brothers with monthly votes, please support Tomato. Thank you. Chapter 319. In the dark and spacious main hall, the surrounding mountain walls were filled with sword art records left behind by generations of experts of the Sword Tower. At this moment, the Tower Lord of the Sword Tower, Huang Fu Yujiang, and his master, Tian Hong, brought the elite experts of the Sword Tower and stopped here because there was a terrifying enemy in front of them. Yujiang. Tian Hong looked at his disciple. Huang Fu Yujiang and his master looked at each other and understood each other's thought. This Ting Qingshan fought at the seaside. I couldn't catch him, but I didn't expect him to come to my Sword Tower's forbidden area. Huang Fu Yujiang was furious and his eyes turned cold. He shouted angrily, "Ting Qingshan, I didn't let the soldiers surround you at the seaside and let you leave safely. It's fine if you don't feel grateful, but I didn't expect you to kill my Sword Tower's elders and trespass into my forbidden area. What do you have to say?" Huang Fu Yujiang held his godly sword and his eyes turned cold. "Feel grateful?" Ting Qingshan was slightly startled. How could those soldiers come down to the sea to surround and kill him? In a real fight, although Huang Fu Yujiang was strong, his true origin would be exhausted. He wouldn't be a match for him. How could he feel grateful? Huang Fu Yujiang, I feel grateful? Ting Qingshan looked at Huang Fu Yujiang carefully and suddenly understood. Huang Fu Yujiang, as the Tower Lord of the Sword Tower, was equivalent to the Emperor of the Bright Moon Island. He was high and mighty, and his words were like gold and jade. Maybe Huang Fu Yujiang thought that he was showing mercy by not ordering the soldiers to surround and kill Ting Qingshan. Ting Qingshan sneered and said, "I think your brain is damaged because you are the Tower Lord of the Sword Tower." Presumptuous. Behind Huang Fu Yujiang, several higher-ups of the Sword Tower shouted angrily. Ting Qingshan glanced at the group of people in front of him and said with an indifferent smile, "The Sword Tower is high and mighty on the Bright Moon Island. You are used to being overbearing. It's fine if you are overbearing to your people, but in front of me, you better behave yourself." You. Many elders were exasperated. Huang Fu Yujiang stretched out his hand to stop him. He looked at Ting Qingshan with a sullen face, but his eyes were filled with murderous intent. "Huang Fu Yujiang, I didn't come to your Bright Moon Island to cause trouble." Ting Qingshan said coldly, "However, your Bright Moon Island's soldiers robbed my ship. When you first came here, even though you knew that the soldiers were in the wrong, you still wanted to capture me and bring me back to your sword tower for punishment. Domineering enough. It's a pity that you're too weak to capture me." Ting Qingshan knew very well that if he was weak, he would have been surrounded and killed by the soldiers at the seaside. Or being killed by Huang Fu Yujiang. Huang Fu Yujiang's attacks at the seaside were all fatal. "Looks like you're courting death," Huang Fu Yujiang said in a low voice. Beside him, his master, Tian Hong, was also standing at the side with a black godly sword in his hand. "Humph!" Ting Qingshan suddenly let out a low snort. The angry snort shook the entire hall. The experts of the Sword Tower, who had not reached the innate realm, couldn't help but cover their ears with a pained expression. Stone powder fell from the entire hall. "Huang Fu Yujiang." Ting Qingshan extended his finger and pointed at Huang Fu Yujiang. "I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. Listen to me clearly. Let alone you, even if all the people of the Sword Tower, including all the soldiers of the 18 generals' residences, come here, I can also slaughter them all." Many people in the Sword Tower trembled when they heard this. All the experts of the Sword Tower and all the soldiers of the 18 generals' residences? "If you don't want to die, then scram further away," Ting Qingshan said coldly. "Arrogant!" Huang Fu Yujiang snorted coldly. Whoosh, whoosh. Huang Fu Yujiang, who was dressed in a white robe, and Tian Hong, who was dressed in a long gray robe, crossed a distance of more than 50 feet in an instant. Moving at an extremely fast speed, they created 2 gusts of violent wind out of thin air, and the violent wind lifted up a lot of stone powder and dust in the main hall. The people behind them watched with their eyes wide open. Ting Qingshan looked at this scene calmly. The 2 sword lights enlarged rapidly in his eyes. Suddenly he moved. The silver reincarnation spear drew a strange and mysterious path. There was a faint earthy yellow light flowing around the path. The scarlet-red tassel also transformed into a misty red light. Clang! Clang! The 2 divine swords were blocked at the same time. Tian Hong turned pale with fright. Even Huang Fu Yujiang's grave and stern face revealed a trace of shock. "He can actually block Mayan teacher's attacks easily. His defensive spear art is actually stronger than my sword art." Although they had fought before, Huang Fu Yujiang only knew that he couldn't break through Ting Qingshan's defensive spear art. However, he didn't know how powerful Ting Qingshan's defensive spear art was. "You overestimate yourself!" The cold shout reverberated in the hall. 2 rapidly rotating spear shadows, one in front and one behind, stabbed towards Huang Fu Yujiang and Tian Hong at almost the same time. Huang Fu Yujiang let out an angry roar as if he wanted to block the spear shadows with all his might. However, it was useless. Poochie! Poochie! The sound of 2 spears piercing through flesh could be clearly heard. Xing E5 Elemental Spear Art, Toxic Dragon Drill. Suppressed cries of pain resounded. Huang Fu Yujiang and his teacher, Tian Hong, both retreated a few steps. Their faces were filled with fear as they looked at Ting Qingshan in disbelief. Huang Fu Yujiang, who was wearing a white robe, was currently covered with bloodstains. Especially on his right shoulder, there was a hideous bloody hole that pierced through his shoulder. His teacher, Tian Hong, also had a bloody hole on his right shoulder. How is this possible? He defeated the Tower Lord and the Old Tower Lord in one move? Impossible! The higher-ups of the Sword Tower, who were watching this scene, shook their heads in a neurotic manner. Their eyes were wide open, and their mouths unconsciously muttered all sorts of words. They couldn't accept the scene in front of them. It was because they knew that if a super expert could easily defeat the Tower Lord and the Old Tower Lord in one move, then this person would be invincible on the Bright Moon Island. He could even completely destroy the Sword Tower and establish a force that unified the Bright Moon Island. The higher-ups of the Sword Tower were terrified and angry. However, the Old Tower Lord, Tian Hong, remained silent. Huang Fu Yujiang, who was beside him, had a bigger reaction. How can this be? It has only been one day. Yesterday. Huang Fu Yujiang couldn't accept it. Yesterday, he was still able to resist Ting Qingshan's spear arts. However, today, Ting Qingshan's spear arts, whether it was in terms of power or speed, were much stronger than before. Huang Fu Yujiang. A cold voice resounded. Huang Fu Yujiang hastily raised his head to look. Not only him, but all the higher-ups of the Sword Tower who had gathered in the Great Hall were also staring at the person who spoke, the person who was like a devil. They all noticed that the tip of the silver spear was black and shiny. The blood that flowed along the tip of the spear was completely absorbed by the red tassel. If you are not satisfied, you can ask all the people of the Sword Tower to come here. You can even send an army. Ting Qingshan looked at him. Not satisfied? He was not satisfied, but did he dare to say it? At this moment, Huang Fu Yujiang understood that the spear arts that his opponent had just displayed could instantly kill everyone in the Great Hall. Previously, his opponent only pierced through his shoulder and didn't kill him. This was already giving him face. What are you doing here? Huang Fu Yujiang asked in a deep voice. The cave where the celestial jade annulus is. I will meditate here. Ting Qingshan smiled and said, I will not allow anyone to disturb me here. Sure. I hope you won't destroy the celestial jade annulus. Huang Fu Yujiang said. Ting Qingshan smiled and nodded. Of course not. All of you can leave now. You can meditate here. I guarantee that no one will disturb Bright Moon Island. I only hope that you will keep your promise and not destroy the celestial jade annulus. Huang Fu Yujiang bowed slightly, then turned around and left. Let's go. Without saying anything else, Huang Fu Yujiang immediately led everyone away. On the mountain road outside the cave, a large group of people had gathered. Tower Lord, what should we do now? The higher-ups of the Sword Tower were confused. What can we do? Huang Fu Yujiang frowned. From today onwards, we will abide by what we said before. No one is allowed to disturb Ting Qingshan. From today onwards, I will live next to the forbidden area. Huang Fu Yujiang turned to look at the forbidden area and thought to himself, I only hope that Ting Qingshan will leave Bright Moon Island as soon as possible. If he didn't leave Bright Moon Island, Ting Qingshan would have the highest status on Bright Moon Island, not them. They would have to live in fear every day. Inside the cave, Ting Qingshan held the reincarnation spear and stepped into the natural cave. Big Brother Ting, will those people come again? Li Jun asked worriedly. Don't worry. Ting Qingshan smiled and said, people like Huang Fu Yujiang are used to being high and mighty, like emperors. That's why he was so overbearing to us and killed whoever he wanted. However, when he realized that I was far stronger than him and couldn't resist, he became very obedient. I didn't even want to kill him, so he didn't dare to provoke me. As an assassin in his previous life, he had been trained in hell since he was 7 years old. In this life, he lived in a chaotic world. Ting Qingshan didn't have a Buddha's heart. In his eyes there were people he had to kill like his enemies. There were also people who deserved to be killed. If someone else wanted to kill him, Ting Qingshan wouldn't show any mercy. For example, North Town's army of 100,000. There were also people he didn't have to kill, like the people of Sword Tower. When Ting Qingshan first entered the forbidden area, he wanted to prevent the news from leaking out. In addition, the 4 guardian elders were ruthless and had obviously killed many people, so Ting Qingshan killed them all. Later, he found the celestial jade annulus. He knew that he had to stay here for a while. Thus, Ting Qingshan openly dealt with the expert of the Sword Tower. However, he didn't kill them to avoid causing unnecessary trouble. Once he finished his closed-door cultivation, he could leave. In just 1 day of meditation, I comprehended the second move of my water element fist. It also increased the power of the toxic dragon drill, and I can easily finish off my opponent. Ting Qingshan looked at the celestial jade annulus. His defense was strong, but his offense was weak. When the water element fist was slightly improved, the power of the toxic dragon drill immediately increased. From today onwards, I will focus on my closed-door cultivation. Ting Qingshan started his long-term closed-door cultivation in this natural cave. Every day there were 24 hours. Among them, Ting Qingshan used 12 hours to comprehend the concept of the Sword Tao. At this time, Li Jun would guard him. As for the other 12 hours, Ting Qingshan would meditate and integrate the water element concept of the Sword Tao into the water element fist. Time passed. The experts of Sword Tower were looking forward to it, hoping that this demon god would leave as soon as possible. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, Ting Qingshan was completely immersed in cultivation. He didn't even have time to talk to Li Jun every day. They would only have a meal once every 10 days to half a month. Only then would they chat. However, Li Jun always guarded him silently without any complaint. After a long period of closed-door cultivation, Ting Qingshan's understanding of the water element fist increased at an astonishing speed. After the update, Tomato said something. Many people said that the 9 Cauldrons was not well written. Tomato also felt the pressure. However, Tomato felt that he was very serious about the latest update, and it was not bad. Tomato needed everyone's encouragement and suggestions. With encouragement, Tomato would be very powerful. As for trash talk, everyone should talk less. Reading it would really make people feel discouraged. Also, everyone said something about Ting Qingshan's character. Don't think that Ting Qingshan was a good person. Tomato never said that he was a kind and good person. In his previous life, he grew up in killing at the age of 7. In this life, he lived in a chaotic world. Killing. To Ting Qingshan, it was as easy as drinking water. He had his own balance in his heart. He knew who he should kill, and who he shouldn't. He hoped that people wouldn't treat Ting Qingshan as a true, kind, and beautiful model. Also, Tomato tried to increase his monthly vote. Right now, his monthly votes were really few. He was less than the first place by over 1,000 votes. The third place was about to catch up. Tomato hoped that those who liked Ting Qingshan, the 9 Cauldrons, and those who liked Tomato, could click recommend monthly votes to support author below to support Tomato. Thank you. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.